Welcome, everyone. Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance, and you're on the Dr. Finance Live podcast. Welcome. We got an amazing guest speaker today. We got Bob Beaudine here. Bob is an incredible sports executive. He's doing so many amazing things. We're gonna learn a lot about him. So welcome, Bob. How are you, sir?
Tony, great to be with you today. I've so many people have been on your show that I know and that have said so many great things about you. So it's an honor to be on with you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. Honor to have you here as well. So, Bob, the way this works, we'll do like a quick 30-second maybe snapshot of yourself. You want to just tell us about yourself in about 30 seconds, and then we'll get into your story. And then I got about 20 questions or so, about a minute or two each, and then we'll.
Awesome, fantastic. So, I grew up with a great family. Our family loved each other. It's just one of those things that you kind of look out today and think, with 70% of men in the country that never had their dad say, "I love you," that gets to be complicated today as I go and talk. So my mom and dad were huggers and lovers. I had two older brothers. One was an actor, successful actor. The other one was successful in HR. My older sister's been my CFO for 30 plus years. So we kind of grew up traveling. My dad was a McKinsey consultant, partner for them. And so we lived initially, he was a Notre Dame guy, and I grew up born in Mishawaka, Indiana, right there at South Bend at Notre Dame. And then we moved to LA, Chicago, and then I landed at school at SMU and just loved Texas, loved SMU. And Texas and Dallas has just kind of grown. It's now all of a sudden the largest corporate headquarters in the United States. Everything kind of is an epicenter. It's easy for in executive search for me to travel to both coasts in a lot easier way than when I was in Chicago at O'Hare and you couldn't get out because of the snow. So it usually became tough. So my dad and mom always, pressed hard to, believe in God. We had faith and family and friends and were big, constantly people who pressed you to dream bigger. So I have tons of stories around just the fact of having a great mentor. Sometimes I believe I got my mom and dad, which I wrote The Power of Who, my first book, through the lens of my dad. I wrote the Two Chairs book through the lens of my mom. And so it gave me a chance to kind of give a flavor for something in a way that all of a sudden opened the door for so many people. And who would have ever, and I tell people all the time, who would have ever thought I could write a memo? And both of these are like global bestsellers, right? So it's insane.
That's incredible. Thank you, Bob. That was about 30 seconds, right on spot. Bob, I also want to give you some props because I did read The Power of Who, as you recommended. And folks, I recommend you check it out too. It really is an incredible book. I mean, if you really want to know about connecting and connections and all that stuff, like there's a whole science behind it. And Bob really, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. When someone can actually do it, and then they can come up with a system, like then that they're for real. So Bob has actually become one of the top sports executives in the country, and he uses The Power of Who. He also has another book, as he's talked about. We're going to talk about more of this in a little bit. Whoa, it's called Two Chairs, which is really cool. So these are the two books he's mentioning, and we're going to talk about them a little later. We're going to do a little deep dive on that. So stay tuned. Bob, let's get into your story if you don't mind. I'd like to start with childhood. So you're originally from Texas, is that right?
I grew up in between South Bend, Indiana area, Mishawaka, and then I grew up in LA in Fullerton, California, and had a chance to be there in my thing, and then kind of went through, late grade school and high school in Chicago.
Wow.
Then I got to SMU. Okay. And so who would have ever thought SMU really recruited hard into there. And I wanted, I wanted to be a college golfer at SMU. And back in the day, college golf only gave out like one scholarship. And so I was heavily recruited because I was a strong golfer in Illinois. I used to compete with Jay Haas. That tells you how old I am. And so, he's, and very successful. And then when, got to SMU, just loved it. And of course, my first year, they dropped golf my freshman year. And then I had to wait 2 or 3 years. They brought Payne Stewart in, and he and I became great friends. And of course, I wasn't any good anymore to be able to do it back after 2 or 3 years of just doing fraternity.
Wow. So, and Bob, I heard that you met Frank Sinatra at one point. I heard a story about that. You want to share that with us?
Yeah, so my dad was really big on trying to always show me what greatness looked like. And I think that's, if dads are listening today, you wanna show and walk people through having a mentor, having someone who's giving you an idea about something. So we used to go to Vegas all the time. Vegas was totally different back then because, food was always like given free. So sitting in the side shows were all free. And then, everything was then all about gambling or whatever that was. My dad wasn't a big gambler, but we went to see Frank Sinatra. We just loved Frank. And so, it was it's just kind of, we just loved Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra just had an opportunity to kind of watch the king. It wasn't like anybody else. And after the show, my dad said, "Hey, we're gonna go backstage and meet Frank Sinatra." And I said, "Can we go backstage?" And he goes, "Now listen, I'm gonna show you something, and it's gonna be a great lesson for you. So when we go, just understand that there's gonna be someone at the door, and he's not gonna want to let us in. Don't say anything, just follow me." So my dad comes out. We go up, and there's this big guy, and he's standing at the door, and he walks up to him and says, "Frank Sinatra," and the guy looks and says, "Mr. Sinatra's not seeing anybody." And my dad says, "Tell him Frank Beaudine and Bobby are here to see him." And so he thinks about it, and he says, "Mr. Sinatra's not here, he's not seeing anybody." And so my dad then leans in and says, "Tell him Frank Beaudine from Chicago." So the guy's thinking, "Holy crap, what if all of a sudden I don't say something?" And so he walks inside. I mean, he's thinking to himself, this could be part of the Gambino family. And so he walks in, and all of a sudden my dad looked at me. Now, we don't know Frank Sinatra. We never said we did. And my dad turns to me and goes, "Watch what happened." All of a sudden, boom, the door's open. Frank Sinatra comes walking towards us, and he goes, "Frank, Bobby, how are you? How's Chicago?" My dad goes, "Hey, it's great." He goes, "Where's the wife?" My dad says, "Martha comes in tomorrow." He says she's gonna be sorry she missed it. He says, "Tony," the guy's name was Tony also. He said, "Tony, hey, you're a big guy. You probably could have been all of a sudden sitting in that way." He says, "Tony, make sure there's 3 tickets again tomorrow up front on me VIP." We walk in to his room and sit now with Frank Sinatra and talk for 20 minutes. And the issue was that he thought, hey, he couldn't not take a chance that, hey, maybe he knew Frank Beaudine from Chicago. And the fact is, somebody's that bold and confident to say it, you're coming in. Now, we've been backstage to meet everyone, and here's the storyline for people. You got to know who you are. You got to know whose you are, the path you're called. We're called to go through barriers. There's no wall that stops us to be able to go. We can go in. And the answer is, it depends on the atmosphere you have. I always tell people, and you know this better because you have just a great, personal environment, Tony. When you talk to someone, it's invisibly transmitted, all the confidence, all the care, all the love to which you have. And my dad just, when he walks up to someone, first off, he's kind of like Ronald Reagan. So he has this presence. And when he just says it, all of a sudden he comes in and he's got a lot of BS where he knows exactly what to say and how to say it. And over the years, while I'm sitting there, and it's just amazing what that has done. We've been backstage to meet Elvis. We've been backstage to meet all of the people that you could possibly want to know in history. We've kind of been backstage to go back, and it's always been something. And most people are just not thinking you can do that. And as a result, you just stay at a level. And of course, I'm always preaching at every place I go is that, listen, if you want something that you never had, you got to do some things you've never done. We've got to know something. And the first portion of this is knowing who you are. And if you have a confidence about that, it has this ability to kind of signal people like a homing signal, because they want to be around confident people who know what they want. Anybody who's looking for a job, I always tell them, you don't know what you want. It's like this like signal over your head that says, beep, 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 don't hire me. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And so, Yogi Berra used to say, if you don't know where you're going, then you end up someplace else. So it's always in a process of the confidence of what it is that you want. And of course, once my dad started showing me this, he started doing this in so many other category areas. And it just changed my life.
You know, Bob, that's an incredible story. And, you know, he pulled it off. He didn't lie or anything like that. But it could have went the other way. I mean, Frank Sinatra was one of the most powerful people around at that time. So it was a big gamble there, right?
Well, in no risk, no gain. One of the things I found,
Yeah.
having sat around now owners of teams and board of regents for major universities, is that they don't see failure as a person. They just see it as an event or something, and so that doesn't ever stop them from going in. And so unless we actually all say, hey, this is what we want, and the fact that the two of us, and we're sitting looking at this, and he says, hey, I'm sure he walked in, and he says, Mr. Sinatra, there's this guy and his son, who's about 13 years old, and he knows you. He's talking pretty confident, and I'm sure this guy all of a sudden just bought that on right on. And so I don't know. It's just so funny. We've met Charlton Heston, Kirk Douglas, we've been everywhere. I mean, the people that all of a sudden you do it. We saw Ed Sullivan, we sat and did something with him. I mean, it's just a funny aspect of what you can do and who you can walk in on, right? If you just think it enough. And then you find that confident people have some type of relational aspect that we immediately click on. As soon as you start to see that someone is confident in themselves, confident people also care a lot about the person that they're standing across, because they're wanting to meet you. And of course, it's it's the first time all of a sudden I heard about you, and all of a sudden, I got a chance to say, hey, would you want to be on it? Yeah, I want to be on his show. What are you talking about?
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. Now, Bob, you are like, yeah, you're like the Frank Sinatra at this point. So people can actually do the same thing to you. So what would you do in a scenario where someone showed up at your door now and said, hey, this is my son, so-and-so, my son, Bobby, we're from Chicago. We're from Chicago. We know you. Like, what would you do?
I thank you for asking that. So when I was young, my dad was out of work for like 6-7 months. And every day he got dressed and went to work, and because he didn't want us to be scared. And then when we went to school, he would circle back in and all of a sudden start his job search. When I started to work for my dad, who had started the executive search industry in 1967 out of McKinsey, and with another guy who was the head of human resources for all of Montgomery Ward, they had kind of wanted to do something different and met on a train one day just to talk about a dream, and then they set it up. When I went to work for my dad, he used to say to me, he says, now listen, he says, if someone comes into our office and they are dropping their resume off, now they don't know to call and make an appointment. They don't have any power of who, where they know someone in our group who knows another person, which of course we're going to then take. He said, they're just coming in. He says, I want to share with you how vulnerable they feel, because and I tell people all the time, I just had a friend of mine who was a top NFL person, pass away. And I tell people, who you are is what you have, and what you have is taken from you. Then who are you? And so my dad used to say, they're vulnerable. So what I want you to do is I want you to go out there. I want you to say hello. I want you to pull them, put an arm around them, take them back to your office, get them a cup of coffee. And he says, there's something great in everyone, Bob. It's your job to find it. And so that sticks with me. I mean, my whole thing, if someone ever wants to just like stop in and they're going to say hello, yes. I mean, they have the guts to keep pursuing. I tell people a lot of times, the key in life is pursuit. The proof of desire is pursuit. You can't just do it. So let's just say you have a son, he's 20 and he's wanting to do something great. And you say to me, I'd like to do it. And I say, yeah, have him call me. And I don't take his call the first time. He comes back to you and goes, Dad, he didn't respond. You go, that's fantastic. And you go, what? And he go, no. Listen, he's a friend of mine. If he didn't do it, he was busy. So you pursue it. Then he calls me again. He doesn't do it. I don't take it a second time. And he goes, oh my gosh. And he didn't take the call. And you go, this is even better. Why? Because now I'm going to have to do twice as much for your son than I did before, because I should have taken it on the first call.
I love it.
And people all over the country miss this thought of like, hey, something goes wrong. Their plane's late. They had to stop in a town. They had to do this. They're coming in for my interview. And then I'm doing this for a big head coach. And then this guy saying, oh my gosh, I missed everything. What are you talking about? They're going to be so compassionate to you. Now they're going to throw up softballs to you in the interview. You got to go with the flow. Trouble is an opportunity in disguise. It's always been that way. People miss it. The answer is pursuit. Keep going. Nothing can stop a determined soul.
Now, Bob, I know we're on your story, but you brought up a great point. I just like to briefly, like, just traject onto that. You, so there are like really big names that I've been going after, and I've been trying to get them on here for at least a year, and they know who I am too. And like, I feel like the higher you go, the more what you just said becomes so realistic, and they know this. So they're waiting to, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'd love to hear your take. I feel like they want me to chase them. Like they want me to chase them to see if I got it in me. And
100%.
I'm like, you don't know me yet, buddy. I'm gonna chase you down for 3, 5
You have
years.
no idea who Tony Criniti is. I'm telling you, I'm going places. We're going to get this thing. I tell people, so I think I did this. I wrote in my Power of Who book that I did at Sales Association came out, says it takes 5 times to call on someone to get their piece of business or to get to them, right? 50% of Americans quit after the first call. They just like quit. 30% quit after like the third call. 10% quit after the fourth, and only 10% go for the goal. And so I thought, I wonder how stupid I've been on some of the people I've been trying to do. So I did a little research. I found out there's 2 people I called on 4 times to get their piece of business. I never did it. So I fly out to meet them. And so we're meeting. I say, how are you? Da, 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 et cetera. And I said, hey, so I just read this book. It says that if I call you 5 times, I get your piece of business. They go, I hope this isn't our 5th time. I walk away with $265,000 worth of business. Now, my point of the matter is this. I tell that story all around, and I'll get CEOs of companies going, I have this person's name on my phone if they'll call me one more time. And I go, who's the person? I'm not telling you. You'll tell the person. He says, I got to see if they got the gumption. I love that word. You have the gumption to go continue. The answer is this. Listen, we live in an impossible life. There's tough things to do. We're busy, which is masquerading as effectiveness. The answer is, listen, when you got in your heart and you know this is what I want, you've got to go for it. You got to stick with it. There's no quitting. There's no quitting in any of it. And the answer is, you're exactly correct. You hit it on a major thing, which is, I'm sticking with them. I'm going to get them on my show because it makes the story even bigger when you do, right?
So it's true though. Like they know this, and they want you to
100%.
If they're that good, if they're that high, and
if you're really smart, you know. First off, the main line of my book is you already know everyone you need to know.
Right.
So that's not to say you're not going to need to know someone in the future, and then all of a sudden that we do it. But today, if you want something, you're not going external in your approach, you're going internal. I bet I already know someone who knows that person. I don't want to just know that person. I want to know their best friend. And I kind of prove that if you just look at who endorsed my book on the back of my book.
Yeah, that's incredible, by the way.
I mean,
Folks,
all
let
you
me
have
show
to
you
do. Yeah. And so if all of a sudden people are stopping and saying, did you get Wayne Gretzky to do your book? Did you get the commissioner? There's no commissioners that have ever signed the back of a book in history.
Yeah, that's incredible. Roger Goodell, folks, check this out. Roger Goodell, this endorsement for his book.
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky, that's amazing. Troy Aikman.
Troy. And some of the other guys are just as big in their own field, right? It's just kind of cool in the process. But my only point is that, there's destiny in this stuff. And so a lot of people just don't understand, along the way is that, I always tell people, God's never late on some of the prayers and things people want, but he's seldom early. You got to work for it.
Thanks, Bob. And Bob, yeah, we're definitely, let's get back to your story. You got an incredible story. But first, I want to give a shout out to Tom Chenault. Tom, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for connecting Bob and I. So that's the power of who right there. Bob was, I guess, Tom, we would call him my who, right? If you use your terminology, my who.
Exactly 100%. And I love Tom Chenault, and I love his son. I love everything they do. I mean, he and I have been friends. I mean, I did a speech for him one time for his Longevity, one of his companies that he's involved in. And it was so funny as he gives his intro to me, he's talking about, and Power Who had just come out, and he just fell madly in love because Power Who just kind of opened up a whole window of thought for him, because so many people have just done, and we'll get to it as the subject, but it's so funny as people and, friends and business are taboo. So you're asking your friends, could you really do this? Of course, that's his whole business line, right? Is all these people who are friends and friends of friends, etc. So all of a sudden he's up in trees. He goes, I'm going to introduce you to the greatest guy in the world. And he's so animated. He's so positive. He's not like he owns the stage. You want to talk about a guy who owns the stage. He does it. And all of a sudden he rips his shirt and he's got the power of who.
What?
He's got a power of who's underneath it. Like he's Superman. It's all like he's a Superman. And it was just too funny. And when we do shows together on his, I've done, I don't know, 6 or 7 on his radio show. And every time we do it, I mean, we kind of leave planet Earth. I only say that a couple of times. I do that with me and Tommy Ziglar, Zig Ziglar's son, who's one of my great, friends, who's just a superstar. And so, you just talk on things that are just higher. You're always doing things that are dreaming bigger. And today, people have been shut down in that category. And I'm trying to constantly remind everyone who's listening today that there's listening, that you do one thing better than anyone in the entire world. And it's our job as your friends around you to nurture and to bring that out, because the whole world's short if we don't do it. You should be celebrated, not tolerated. You're just awesome. And so we got to get you to dream bigger. And, if times are troubled and you have lost your confidence, it's fantastic. Congratulations. This is the greatest day of your life. We're going to get to pick what we want. What you have always dreamed about, you can get, but you just haven't figured out how to connect it yet.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. Yeah, Tom is great. By the way, we met on Clubhouse. He's been on hundreds of stages with me so far. Interviewed him on the podcast over 3 hours, him and Adrian. Incredible.
Adrian, I just love Adrian. I love their whole family. Denise, everybody in there, and they're just a quality people. And they've got something they're doing right now that's going to just explode called contact mapping, where he's doing, which he is just unleashing, around the world, which is kind of a power of who thing where you just stay in touch and you can connect with people so much easier. So big shout out to Tom as well. Love you, Tom.
Tom, you're the best. Thank you, Tom. And and Bob, if you come to Clubhouse, Tom, he said, will be right there, right on top of the stage with you co-hosting. So
awesome.
Have an incredible experience. All right. So Bob, let's get back to your story. Maybe 2 or 3 highlights from, your first 10 to 20 years, like stories that really stood out to kind of explain that. And I want to build a foundation to how you got so successful. And I always believe you have to start from the root to see how they figured out problems from a kid.
When again, having individuals who see something in you, right? If someone believes in you, that changes everything. And so when it's a dad or a mom, and of course I was blessed to have both. When it's a dad or a mom, it just really takes you to another level. So when I was young, my dad would always, in the first, I'll never forget growing up, 8, 9, 10, 11, all the way, as I grew up, my dad would take me places to see great people, kind of like Frank Sinatra. And so one of my favorites is he took me to see Arnold Palmer. And of course, it was 1973, and it was a Bob Hope Desert Classic. And we're going to see him. And, seeing Arnold Palmer is just like, he just was a stud. I mean, he had armies, and he was not like the normal PGA Tour pros today. He talked to everybody as he walked around. He figured out something that I'm going to share with you today, that if people could understand and grab what Arnold Palmer and I'm about to share, it's going to change your life, because there's something that he knew and my dad was trying to share with me. So I'm going to take you back. It's 1973. It's the, Bob Hope Desert Classic in Palm Springs. He's on the last day. He's on the 16th hole, and he hooks the ball, Arnie, into the woods, and he is in the lead by 1. All of a sudden, my dad and I are right there in the woods, right next to the ball.
Wow.
We see Arnold Palmer coming towards us. It's unbelievable. Here comes Arnie. My dad goes, look at him. I go, oh my gosh, it's Arnie. And he goes, no, look at him. And I go, what? He goes, what do you see? What should I see? And he goes, he's not nervous about going into the woods. fantastic first thought. So the greats of the world don't see trouble as trouble. They see it as an opportunity. They see somehow that this could become epic. It's not just, hey, I got trouble and I'm going to lose and I need the money and I got something. No, no, no. He's not thinking that. He's thinking epic. So all of a sudden, caddy comes over, drops the bag. He looks and he goes, okay, so Arnie, he goes, you've got to hit that ball, okay, underneath that tree that's about, 20 yards in front of you. And you'd have to hit it underneath that tree limb. You're going to have to hook it left to a green that's tucked in tight with traps. It's 240 yards. So listen, we're up by 1. I just need you to hit a little wedge out here. We'll then go in. If we got a bogey, we'll be tied. We'll beat them on 17 and 18. So Arnie starts waggling the wedge. He's looking to think to himself. Now, have you ever noticed, Tony, that great people hate to hit little wedges right out there? I mean, that's just not what they're really wanting to do. And so he needs something to change the entire atmosphere. So the atmosphere you permit determines the product you produce. I mean, it's a big thought for people. So you have a choice of what your atmosphere is. The caddy says wedge. He wants some energy because he can't make this shot without some energy. Do you know, and can people really listening today understand that they can grab energy from other people? I mean, you do and I do. We do it all the time when we're on a stage and we're doing something. I'm looking for somebody who's just grasping what I'm doing. And and if somebody's got a sour puss face, I'm not looking at that person. I'm looking at somebody who's going to just come unglued with the fact of what I'm saying. And so when it starts in the room, you can feel the vibe and everything happen. Arnold Palmer slowly turns his head to see who's around. And he looks, and there's my dad and I standing right over here.
Wow.
And he looks at my dad, and my dad looks at him eye to eye and goes, he gives the no sign on the wedge. Okay, so all of a sudden he goes, oh my gosh. He goes, I can't believe that. And so caddy sees him and goes, I saw that. Don't look at that, man. I need you to hit a wedge right home. Don't listen to him. Arnie laughs. He smirks. He waggles the wedge again. Slowly, he turns his head. My dad gives him the no sign again. My dad steps over to look to see if he could possibly see if he could get in and hit that ball underneath it. He comes back. All of a sudden, he waggles the 4-wood. Slowly, he turns his head. My dad gives him the yes sign. He barks at the caddy to get out of his way. So he gets himself all set up. He got the shot. And he's got that little flip in his head. And all of a sudden, boom, it goes right underneath that tree. And like a homing signal, it turns left and it starts going towards the green. It bounces up 5 feet from the pin. The crowd is going crazy. Arnold Palmer saluting my dad, and the whole folklore of Arnold Palmer is all because of my dad.
What? That's incredible.
And so
True story. True story.
Yeah, true story. And of course, maybe the folklore of Arnold Palmer not it isn't, but the true story is that what we get is what we're first seeing. So I tell people all the time, you can't get what you can't see. So don't tell me what is it you want. Tell me specifically. When I say that to people, it's a name the 3 jobs you want, 3 specific people you're going to report to. Bob, I'd like to be in sports. Did that sound anything like my questions? No, because they can't even hear them. Why? Because they're so vulnerable being out of a job that they've forgotten who they are. And so I say to them, just to wake them up, I say, so you want to be a referee? And they go, no, I don't want to be a referee. I wanted to be a CEO of all of a sudden, the US Open tennis. Oh, okay. Well, then who's the person that you need to know? Because it's all on the internet. Let's make a list of all the people to whom you want, because you're not like anybody else. You're one person who has a dream, and we can start to get at this dream if you could be specific. List the people, then let's go to our who, the people who love us, and ask them if they know them. You're going to be shocked. Most people see their friends one-dimensionally, like just them. But if you have 100 friends and I have 100 friends, we don't have 200 friends. We have 10,000. Our friends have friends. And so we're not, and all we want is one. So the odds of us getting this is so great. And so we're just not going to put up with any of that crap. So what my dad was trying to show me, so I could talk a lot about things to the people as we're talking today. I could I could maybe have a PowerPoint. That just doesn't connect with people. You know what connects with people? Story. It reminds them that all of a sudden they can visualize themselves. All of a sudden with Arnie, they see it, they look and go, "You're crap. Why? What's the point here of the story?" The energy between two people is what makes great marriages, great families, great teams, great podcasts, legendary results. And the answer is no energy, no good. It's the energy between two people that makes it come passionate and become something so exciting. And the answer is, I don't want a job. I hate jobs. Who would like to have a job? I'm not doing it. Were you calling this a job that we're doing? I mean, this is like fun. I do this every day with you. We just like sit and talk. You know, it's not like you and I, when Tom Chenault says to somebody, which is another aspect of Power Who, which people just don't get, is that I can't talk to that person. Well, they're a friend of Tom. So if a friend of Tom is a friend of yours, do you think the odds are that we're going to be friends? Of course. But they just don't see it yet, and because they hadn't experienced it. And so my point is, my dad was really brilliant on the aspect of figuring out how to get something across. Of course, God did that. Jesus did that all the time. I mean, all he did was parable stories, little stupid stories that he tried to remind people. And then all of a sudden they go, "Oh, okay, so that's what you meant."
But Bob, that's an incredible point. By the way, as a university professor, former university professor for 10 years, I learned exactly what you just said to be true from the opposite, from not doing that. We were forced to use PowerPoints and all that nonsense. And like, I did the best I can because we're forced as you professors to teach this stuff. And like, you can't tell, you can only tell stories to a certain point. But in real life, like if we didn't have that curriculum and I had more flexibility like I do now, I'm noticing you get so much more better results. So thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. Bob, do you want to do a quick like tutorial of your amazing display behind you? You have a lot of incredible stuff, looks like.
Yeah. So I believe that in an office, so I'm sitting in a chair right where I am, and I have two chairs right here. And then I come up and then I'm looking out today over Toyota's headquarters, and they have their major headquarters. Just to my right down here is the new Cowboys practice facility in Frisco. And then right down this whole line is Snapple and Dr. Pepper and Frito-Lay and everyone and this all this up in a line. And so it's called like Headquarter Way. And I think they made like, I live in a city called Plano, Texas. And of course, you know, who in the heck would live in Plano, Texas? But the answer is, it's kind of like one of those little fake towns they made up. But they did such a beautiful job because all these corporations created all the infrastructure and they did it all. So this is kind of a tip in life, right? When you're looking at something behind you, is I sit down here and then I'm working, but I'm also looking up at my pictures, and pictures tell you something. They're constantly reminding you of things. And so up here to the side up here is a sign that says, "Does God know your situation?" And so and in that particular one, do you see that? Is that visible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the only reason I have that's a great line that I'll tell you later when we talk about two chairs. The right of that all of a sudden is "We are Marshall." And of course I did the athletic director of Marshall. And of course, Marshall, all the team went down in a plane. And then they all came back, right? And so it was a great movie. It was a great aspect of all this stuff. And I got them signed. Everybody signed it for the whole aspect of everybody who was anybody in the show and the movie and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, in this world, you have trouble. And so searches go downhill. They go into the rubble. You thought you had this done, your candidate, and that thing. And it just reminds me that, you know, one or two people coming back together as a team can like rebuild this whole thing. And of course, they've rebuilt into something fantastic. And so I'm always reminding that. To the right of that is all of a sudden Glory Road. And of course, that's the whole story of UTEP and the whole basketball. And it was the first time they ever had brought an all African-American team into play. And then they beat Kentucky and they did all these great things. And my whole thing is that there's something new on the horizon all the time. And you have to be an innovator. You have to be something that's on the leading edge. And the answer is, I never stick with the same old, same old. I hate something. It just drives me crazy. I'm always looking for the best of the best. I'm requiring that of me. I'm constantly saying, hey, what could I do that would do it? I tell everyone, if we're doing it this way and you have a better way, then I want to hear it. If it's not as good, then you need to learn my way until all of a sudden you can come up with that way.
That's right.
And so I'm doing that. Underneath here, over here is Hoosiers. And all of a sudden you got Gene Hackman. and he's like holding out the ball. And the thing is, every single day, someone's going to give you the ball. I want the ball. Give me the ball. And when we used to talk, I have a great friend of mine, Rolando Blackman. He was one of the greats for the Mavericks. He made a great shot, did all these stuff in college, and he's one of my favorite people. And Roe used to say, when he was coaching with the Mavericks, that in the last 2 seconds, even in the pros, okay, they got someone's going to have to make the shot to win at the last second. And everyone's got their head down, but one person. We're giving that person. We might have set a play that we're going to go over here, but we ain't doing that. And even in the show, they come back and they make up this play at the end to win. And of course, they're going to like not give it to their best player. And the best player looks and goes, I'll make the shot. And of course, I love that. And my whole point is today, you were created to do great and mighty things. Don't let anyone else that. You want the ball. And so there's no one who can take the ball and do what it is necessary for your family, for your friends, for the job. So we got to be always on top of that. And I want that. And so underneath that is a picture that's down low. It's a picture of me and Gerald Ford. Okay, President Ford. And so we go in, we're skiing in Vail. I come in, I'm in there, and all of a sudden Gerald Ford's skiing, and they got a Vail deal, and he walks in and he has no money to pay for a cup of coffee. And I go, President Ford, let me be the thing. And he goes, well, my guys will be in here in a second. No, we're not waiting for them. And I just said, hey, I get you a cup of coffee. And then all of a sudden, their Secret Service, all of a sudden, they're in the room, and they look, and he goes, and he's like, they're kind of positioned me away. And he goes, you're talking about I'm having coffee with Bob. And so all of a sudden, we sit down and we have this unbelievable conversation. And so it just reminds me all the time is that life's made up of moments. You know, time is your enemy, but timing's your best friend. Is your head up? Are you ready? Are you going to be bold? Are you going in for Frank Sinatra? Are you going to say, hey, no, I got that, Mr. President? And then you're going to sit talk, and then we got to sit and talk. And he played ball for Michigan football, and he's just a great guy. And it was just like, you couldn't believe the moment. And of course, I had placed the president of US Skiing for the Olympics. And so I had some stuff I could say. But I wasn't trying to say any of that. I just was, dang it, I'm just glad to be sitting next to a guy who's all of a sudden the president. And so underneath that is a picture. The lowest one up next to my baseball bat and hockey thing is a picture of all of a sudden Archie Manning, Peyton Manning, my dad, and I. And so I was the chairman of the Doak Walker Award. And so we gave out the National Running Back Award. So I brought in the father. I got to pick some of the people who were going to come. I wanted Archie and Peyton, and because my dad and I worked together for 25 years, and I wanted to see how Archie built champions. And so it was such a fan. I just went to an event with Colt McCoy and Brad McCoy the other day, and we were doing something to stop child trafficking. And so the two of them talked, and Brad. And, all of a sudden, Colt McCoy's like playing for the Arizona Cardinals, and he was in his quarterback room doing it, and he's on the screen at the Bush Library thing where we were doing it. And it was just kind of fun. But my whole point sometimes is, it just reminds me, how fast time goes, how quick life is, right? And so what a moment it is. And Archie's one of the class acts of all time. He's just a great human being. Peyton hadn't yet become all the things, but you could tell he was funny then, right? He'd still say funny, and now he's Mr. Unbelievable, all of a sudden, and what he does. And so the rest of the pictures, I got a great picture over here of like 52 things you should do before you die. But the one thing, it's Arnold Palmer, he's sticking his hand out. You know what he thought his number one was? Say hello. We've lost that in the pandemic. I tell a story that when I grew up.
Bob, mind if I correct you for a second? We didn't lose it, you and I.
Oh, no, we didn't. No, we did not. No, exactly. Exactly.
A lot of people have. We have not.
They have. And what I'm trying to do is remind them, hey, no, we're not going for that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So like when I grew up, I loved Sherlock Holmes. And the reason I loved it because he could see what other people couldn't see that was hidden in plain sight. And so one of my favorite stories is that all of a sudden Sherlock Holmes is out with his sidekick, Watson, and they're camping at 10 o'clock at night. And he looks at Watson and he goes, hey, so what do you see? And he goes, well, it's lightly raining. And he says the clouds and I see a little bit of a moon, maybe a couple of stars. And he says, but it's raining and it's getting colder. And he says to Sherlock, what do you see? And Sherlock says, someone stole our tent.
What?
And so while everyone's looking out here, they're missing what's happening here.
Mm.
They missed with the masks and all the stuff and everybody that you missed the joy. You didn't talk to people. You didn't go see people. Dang it. I mean, my whole thing is that, I mean, don't get me wrong. I was only out of my office 2 weeks, the whole pandemic. I mean, in Texas. And so it was a good thing for me in my aspect of where I was. And my whole point today is that now's our time that some things we've lost and we need to get back is good tackling and good blocking and getting back to hello, fantastic. I'm so glad to see you again. You're writing notes to people, telling them that you're so glad to have their business. You're a person of gratitude. We have to get back to things we were always good at. And we stopped that 3 years ago. There's some people we haven't even called in so long that we haven't forgotten. And I want to tell them totally the opposite, right? I want to stop and say and remind people that once someone's taken a place in your heart, they never leave. So when you call them,
Wow.
they're not going to go, I can't believe you didn't call. They're going to go, Tony, oh my gosh, I missed you. I love you. Where have you been? And so it totally shifts the whole concept. And then people go, oh my gosh, I almost missed that. I might have missed that chance. And he goes, hey, I wanted to give you a piece of business. I wanted to do something with you. And what I wouldn't have called. And so there's just some things. And so my whole wall is filled with pictures, like a picture, of Joe DiMaggio, and he's looking down for the sign. Okay, he's looking down the third base line for the sign. He's over here, up here in the side. It's a big picture up on my wall here.
Yeah, I see. Mm-hmm.
As you see, it's right up in here and there. And so he's looking down for the sign, the third base sign. And so I tell people, I do it every morning. First thing, it's called 2 chairs. I mean, it's just like, it's just good. I got a picture of Jay Leno and he's pointing a picture. Jay Leno's taking it over by my computer just low, but he's pointing a picture. He's pointing his finger at me in the picture. And I go, yeah, that's what I want to do. I don't want to think about, it's not about me. I'm not interested in Bob Beaudine. I'm interested in you. I'm interested in what you're doing. I'm not interested in all of the accoutrements and all the stuff in life. People matter most. Our heart knows it. God taught us, and yet we forgot. And so we're one of the great opportunities right now is getting back into what we do. I mean, when I first joined the firm with my dad, who had been a McKinsey guy, I thought, okay, so he's gonna like show me a lot of technical things because McKinsey, you got to be really, really smart. My dad could do like a New York Times crossword puzzle in 5 minutes. I'm on spit, and he didn't like, he'd get an SAT test or something. He wouldn't miss something, and of course I'm thinking, 2 trains are going this way and what's happening, where are they going to stop and how are they doing? I'm thinking, what are you eating? I'm in trouble on the test, but I'm clever. So we're sitting and he turned to me and goes, hey, I want you to write down 3 things of what our firm. So when we do what our firm stands for. And I said, okay. He writes it down. Make friends. Help your friends in every way possible. Don't be surprised if you do a lot of business with your friends. And so that's what we do. We do a lot. We help our friends in every way possible. That there's a big difference between friends and acquaintances. Friends help you now. Acquaintances wish you well. Friends know the song in your heart and they can sing it back to you when you've forgotten the words. Friends are secret keepers. Friends will do something for you that mere acquaintances would never even consider doing. What are we thinking? It's about friends. God gave us specific people in our lives to help us. And of course, we need to remember, reach out and reconnect to them. So I have this great wall. Walls are important. I got great pics of across the board of lots of things. I got USA hockey winning the championship. I got Payne Stewart. I got all of a sudden a fantastic picture here of like Super Bowl stuff and all that kind of stuff. And it's not really, when you walk into my office, I have all these balls that I have, footballs, baseballs, basketballs, everything, the coolest thing in the world when you see my office and you walk into it. And it's got and every signature and all the stuff. And so, but what's cool about ours is that mine isn't about getting a signature from somebody I don't know who's a big star. It's getting your signature when you come in. So I put yours on a football, right? You know, I put yours on a helmet. And so you might be on the same helmet that Lou Holtz and all of a sudden Peyton Manning, and you might be on with Arnold Schwarzenegger or I don't care, or, you know, it could be Ultimate Fighting Championships or something, because we do every single thing. And we still, you know, I still do half, you know, quarter of my business just doing real estate, you know, CEOs and various cool stuff. So, you know, you do business with your friends. And that's one of the nice things, having been in this business for 40 some years, 42 years. That's crazy to even say that I've been in that long. I still feel like a pup.
Bob, thank you, by the way. I appreciate the amazing tour of the wall. That's an incredible wall. I mean, just like, you know, having coffee with the president just randomly, that's pretty interesting. Can you give us a quick history of your company? Because it started with your dad, from my understanding, and then somehow you fit into the picture and you went your slightly a different direction to the sports area, from my understanding.
So my dad started it in 1967, probably. He was one of the pioneers of executive search. And of course, executive search is, we do the top 4 or 5 jobs for anybody. They hire us exclusively, and they pay us, as you know, a percentage as we go. And we fill all those jobs. We had offices in Chicago, New York, LA, San Francisco, 15 countries in Europe, Sao Paulo, Tokyo. My dad would always say we have Hawaii because we need that for February. And and so we would we had all of that. And then I joined the firm in 1980. After I graduated from SMU, I first had been in brand management, first in sales for Carnation Company. And I was mentoring with a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking to his son, and I get a lot of chairman sons and president sons and everybody who we sit and talk to for trying to teach them a little bit of the power who. And they were saying, what should I do first coming out of school? And I said, well, you gotta make sure you're asking your dad and your mom and people who love you, because they got great connects. And so they're not going to do the job for you. And just because someone gives you an open door doesn't mean you're going to try to do it. You don't have to forge your own way with your own territory that no one's ever done before with your machete. I mean, you know, my mom would always say, you know, hey, it's a dad client, you know, went 5 miles to things. She goes, hey, he never did that. You know, Uncle Freddie picked him up, you know. And so these things are all not things. So my whole point initially is that my dad, when I first graduated, he let me meet with 7 very successful presidents. And just for me to sit in a room with them, for them to give me guidance, to listen to it. And out of that, 2 of them immediately, you know, 3 of them, you know, were introducing me to someone. 2 of them wanted to hire me. And the other one all of a sudden was trying to figure out a new business that he was doing that he just got to get me into. It's crazy. And so something was happening in all directions. And so I first got in, I went to work for Carnation, which is now Nestle. And so I did sales first, and then I got brand management. I worked for a fantastic guy named Roland Hansen. So Roland, when I left, he was a, you know, Wharton MBA, General Mills, you know, great undergraduate, played college football, did a lot of things. And then when I left and went into search, he went and ran global marketing for Neutrogena. And then he then went to Microsoft and created the name Windows for Microsoft.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now he's on now we're on boards. Now we're on a board together with a new product, and he's got this new product. I'm on this board. So we come full circle, 42 years of being friends, right? We stayed friends, and now I'm on a board of his, and we're rolling out a new product called Proveda, which is this fantastic. If your arms hurt or anything, it's this new plant-based, earth-based CBD without any THC that can go through the pain receptors and get in and heal you. In 60 seconds, it immediately takes the pain away. It's so much better than BioFreeze or any of these other stuff. So I can't wait for that to come out. So I'm on with Boomer Esiason, and Deepak Chopra is on the board, and you know, all these guys, and chairman of Samsung, all these cool things are happening and stuff. But anyway, it's just funny how life is, right? So we did that. I finished that. I go to work for my dad, and I opened the Dallas office with another guy. And I didn't know anything. I'm just coming in. I'm a brand guy. And so it's just kind of like meeting. And I did that. I did kind of search doing presidents and everything internationally as well as domestically everywhere. Learned a ton about business. Dallas was a great spot to be because real estate had just broke through and all those people were young. And the average age of my business were 40 something. And I'm sitting here in the late 20s. And I'm thinking, you know, and so, but late 20s worked for the other guys who own the companies who were late 20s. Right. And so that kind of grew. And then I kind of got into a spirit. And I finally, after about 10 years, I looked at my dad and I said, I started to think like the power of it. I started really then re-gauging what it is that I want to do, what it is that I'm thinking people should do. And my dad and I started strategizing over it. I said, listen, I'm not sure I want to do so. And they go, what are you talking about? You're fantastic. You're making money. You're doing really well. He goes, so what do you really think? And I said, I should do what I love. Okay. And what I'm really good at. And he goes, so go ahead and just say it out loud what that means. And I said, when I do a search for like a president of a manufacturing company, at the end of the search, I get a tour of the plant. If I did the head of marketing for the NBA, we'd get All-Star Weekend. And so he goes, yeah, go get that. And he says, do they do searches in that? No one's ever really done any searches. So no one's ever done any search in sports. They've done work for like Wilson Sporting Goods and, you know, for various, you know, aspects of Nike and those type of things, but they haven't really done any of that yet. Those were all given searches by what I call influencers. Big coaches would name the next person, a big person who was formerly, you know, one of the top agents or scouts would say something about a guy. And so I'm sitting there and I kind of do it. And so one of the guys who happened to be on our board of directors was this fantastic guy named Bill Bartholomew, who Bill had found Hank Aaron, had moved the Milwaukee Braves to the Atlanta Braves, was one of the largest outside stockholders for Ted Turner, was just an unbelievable human being, was one of the great, you know, people, probably one of the most well-met people I've ever known in Chicago. And of course, that's where we were headquartered in Chicago. And so he was big in insurance. He used to be the head of the Chicago Parks Board. I mean, they got like, you know, statues of him and when you go into the Atlanta, you know, Atlanta Braves and so of everything we were doing. And so we sat one time and we went back and forth, and my dad and I sat and talked about it. And you know, he just said, you couldn't go over and leave the business you got until you got some of this. So you're going to have to go build those friends and start a thought. It's just a thought. And so Bill's in the other thing, and they have lunch, Bill and them, and they came back, and my dad, I turned it, and I'm sitting with Bill Bartholomew and my dad, and he turned, and my dad said to him, he said, so Bob's thinking of doing something in sports. He'd like to do that field. And he really wants to open it up into college and pro and every new field that anybody had ever done, and kind of open the whole business. And so Bill looked and said, hey, Bob, can you leave the room for a second? I want to talk to your dad. And so all of a sudden they didn't talk. And all of a sudden he comes back and he goes, hey, so I have a search. He says, this would be a good one for you to start on. And I said, so what is it? The commissioner of baseball, where we put in Bud Selig. That's my opening search in professional sport. The largest search anyone could get. It's America's game, right? It's everything. And so I got a chance to interview the 50 biggest people that you could possibly imagine, presidents. I interviewed George W. Bush, of course, back then, you know, Colin Powell, all the big people, you know, every general, you know, every president of a university, every person, the former president of Disney, and every major consumer packaged goods company. So we kind of started, which then moved me to create, and I did then the commissioners of Arena Football League, where we kind of wrote all that stuff, and we created the first ones there, and Continental Basketball League, and then it just expanded, you know, and into that. And now we've all of a sudden done, you know, we did like 54 of the 100 Division I athletic directors and 90 coaches, and so it's just like you never know how you get your first search. It could be that you're known of them as a leader. You know someone, they're your next door neighbor, and they all of a sudden really want to do something with you. They're sitting in your boardroom. Who would have ever known? And so, but your eyes are up, your head to thing. But you always know how you get your second or your 23rd. You got to be really good at it. And so you can't be successful. This is the tip for people. So you can't be successful at what you like. You got to love it. You have to love it. There's 180 words in the Greek language for love. They're all better than like. Right. And so that's why you can, if, I could be with your wife and tell your wife I love her, and you're not worried about that because there's 180 words in the Greek language, right? And so we're all confused on this. See, I love my wife of 39 years, Cheryl, and I love tacos. So it's real confusing to people. No, it's not confusing. The issue is I don't have one person in sports or any client of mine that doesn't say I love you. Period. And so we're really out on that big. And so I do at every conference that I try to get people, we play this text message game where I try to remind them that friends are the key in life. Okay, that to you to be successful, you've got to have friends, people who call you a friend, for people who trust you as a friend, for their integrity and the character and the loyalty and the hard things. And they're not just acquaintances. People, in this whole category will do something for you much more. And it's not about just stupid stuff of sending out, your application for jobs to people you don't know. It's not like sending Dear Recruiter letters. Dear Recruiter, that's an oxymoron. I mean, it's not like sending out, doing mass emails and LinkedIn. Now, I love LinkedIn for some facets of what it can do because it's brilliant. But the aspect of you going in and saying, hey, the person friended you and hey, I'm going to sell you some product.
Oh, that's so annoying.
It's embarrassing. And the answer is, but someone who knows them. And so you're just not understanding the power. That's why all those people who do that should read The Power of Who. It would be brilliant for them. It would just be life-changing. And so we do this little text message where I get everyone and I try to declare, because men over the age of 35 stop adding friends, Tony. I mean, they're friendly, but they keep their old friends. They don't add any new ones. Men over 60 give up their old ones. And it's a huge problem because in this world, you're going to have trouble. How much trouble? Buttloads. I mean, it ain't going to just stop. I mean, it's going to have lots. And so who do you have to turn to? You turn to a stranger or a friend. And so we send this fantastic saying three things. Hey, I get everyone to do it. I said, so you're going to say these three lines. You can't change the lines. Hey, I was just thinking about you. I mean, that's one of the most affirming things you could say to someone. Hey, I was just thinking about you. I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate your friendship. I love you. 3 lines. We hold it, select all, copy it. We send it to you. One of your mom or your dad. We're all going to do it. We're not going to do it in any group message. We're going to do it individually. You're going to send it to your mom or your dad. You're going to send it to your sisters and brothers. You're going to send it to your best friends. And you're going to send that out. Now, if you send that to your mate that's not in the audience, you have a 94% chance that she comes back and says, did you mean this for me? Because of the word friendship. Isn't that interesting? And of course, so listen to the statistics today. So 69% of the country hate their job. They believe that a bad day at the beach is better than a good day at work. 80% of the country is not using their number one talent. So we're spending billions of dollars training people in jobs they don't want to do. And 60% of the country is getting divorced. There's no matter. And the reason is they're coming home from their crappy jobs where they have no dream. They've been just settling in. They're in status quo. They're not doing what they were called to do. There's no purpose. And what are they doing? They're joining Saturday Night Live Weiner family. And they're moaning, etc., until all of a sudden they think that the person who they were married and were loving and everything was great, but they have this trailing conversation. They were really good all day, talking positive and doing all the great. Then they come home and moan and tell all the negative stuff to their wife, and then the room, it turns toxic and things all of a sudden going. And I say to people, hold a second. And then, hey, I think I could find a different model wife. And then the answer is, hold a second. But no one would ever get rid of their best friend. And so when you say, I so appreciate your friendship, and then she comes back and, did you mean this for me? We send out 3 things to anybody who sends sarcasm. No, I meant this for you. No, I meant this for you. I love you. And if you sent back and you said, oh, ditto, hey, just thinking about you as well. We say, where's the love? Question mark. You got to say, because if you don't say, I love you, there's a good odds that you won't say that to your sons and your daughters. And so the issue today is that, I tell people all the time, the Jewish faith has this fantastic thing they do. It's just so wildly good. They lay hands on their kids every night and they say, I love you I'm proud of you, and I give you the Father's blessing. They do it every night. And then as they walk out of the room, they say, you're going to do great and mighty things. Can you imagine the impact night after night of saying that to your kids? Well, I know what things, having given talks now across the country at various prisons, here's what I found, is that there's less than 1% in the country who are Jewish men in prison, less than 1%. Why? Because the whole aspect of our whole calling in life, the whole facet of who we are was based on our human nature, is to be affirmed and to be told we're loved. And of course, if you don't have that, you're going to be seeking it in ways that you can't do it. It's all dysfunctional, and it gets us in the thing. And how simple it would be tonight if everyone who's listened, run home, put your hands on your kids and tell them you love them, you're proud of them, and you give them the Father's blessing, and you hug and kiss your wife. It's like I tell kids, people all the time in my book, I always try to sneak in a little parenting advice because now I'm a grandpa, right? And so my advice constantly is, look, you get home, it's like your dog. If you do not give attention to your dog, he's going to annoy you the whole time. It's the same way with your little kids. You've got to love on your kids and play with them and joke with them. And if you do that for the next 5 or 10 minutes, they are totally happy and feel like everything good. It gave your wife a chance to have a break. So, and the same way for wives who are sitting and all of a sudden they're working their tail off, and et cetera, et cetera. They got to spend time with your kids and all the things. And it's just equal across the country today. And so it's all simple stuff, Tony. And that's why, you're so good at what you do, is that simple stuff changes the world.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. You're 100% correct. Bob, so real quick, we're just going to maybe a few more minutes on your story, and then we'll get into the questions. I just want to ask you, why sports though? Like, you could have, when you went to your dad and you said, I want to do what I do best, but do what I love at the same time, and you already were doing what you did best, you could have went a different direction. You could have went, maybe publicity, or like, you name it, right, the celebrities, Hollywood, but you went sports. Like, why do you love sports so much? I played high school football, basketball, tennis, golf. I mean, I love badminton, ping pong, bowling. I don't care what it is. It was something I love being around people and a team and having a little bowling team. I mean, my wife and we found it humorous, and we've just gotten our sons-in-laws and our daughters and go bowling. And, it's just like, we just laugh at each other when we gutter ball, and then we're all trying to get the last one where we can all of a sudden do something to win. And the same thing goes, and as pickleball's become like the big thing. And I grew up. So first off, I like to pick something that no one's gone before. And so no one had really gone in this category. And yeah, you created I'm sorry, Bob, you created an industry, right?
I did. No one had ever done it before.
Wow.
And so my thought was, and not only did they not do it, but they didn't do it well, because the hardest part about people thinking about sports is confidentiality. So the way I do search is I don't have applicants for jobs, I have candidates. And so my candidate, I'm keeping confidential all the way through the process. So the hardest thing, and that's why it was so good to start with a commissioner of baseball where I put in Bud Selig, is that I had to do a search, and no one knew who my candidates were. So they would put it up on the pages of sports pages. Here's the guys that are going to, none of those were any of my candidates, right? And the same thing if I'm doing, the head of the, business for the Miami Heat, or I've done New York Rangers hockey, or I've done everybody at US Open tennis, and it's all going on this week. And one of my guys is the president of US Open. He's spectacular. It doesn't matter in all of these things, in golf, anything. What's hard about it is that you got to care about people. And so I tell people, and this is a good thing, it's interesting. When I call you up, first off, I know someone who knows you. So I'm already using the power of who. I've never made a cold call, ever. I know someone who knows everybody. Everyone knows everyone in the thing. We're just lazy. We're just not making that effort to go do it. So I figure out who I know knows you. So now we're already talking off like as friends. And so I say, okay, so I have this job, okay, that I'm doing for the president of tennis, or doing the chief financial. I'm finishing a search for a university for the provost and their chief financial officer. And I say, okay, so I have this friend who knows you, and now we're doing. I said, so what I want to do is, I've got the search. As you know, I'm paid whether I fill it or not. And so unless I have something great for you, I don't want to waste your time. And they go, oh, great. I said, so there's 5 things that I think, okay, that great people are looking for in a job. And so we ought to consult, you and me, let's consult against these 5 things that I've identified. And if I don't have these 5 things, okay, then you shouldn't take the job. But if I have them and they're better than your job, then I think we should all of a sudden consider them. And so they go, great. So I said, number 1, you got to go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. Mm. Okay, so this is a big problem today, okay, because we had 40 million people quit their jobs. And they would do anything not to go to that job. Why? Because they were being tolerated. And they didn't have anything. And the hardest thing that I tell people, I just did a thing for a magazine, the other Sports Business Journal the other day, and they said, what's the number 1 thing? Retaining your people is number 1, because it costs you a lot of money if you let your great people go for no reason, because you didn't say you loved them and that they were fantastic and you didn't celebrate them, okay? So people is the most important aspect. So I don't want you to take this job if you didn't know the president of the university. I'm going to tell you, I know, I'm going to tell all about him and this. And then when you get in the process, you're going to get to know that. And here's their culture and the atmosphere that they're permitting. This is the product they're producing. I'm talking about that environment. Number 2 is tools. So the number 1 tool for people sometimes is being empowered to do the job. They're not normally being empowered. They're just taking a job and you're moving to cubicle 3, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I tell most of this, but if you're young, and you're listening, so you don't have great training. Don't take a job without a mentor. You got to have somebody in there who loves you, can mentor you, and guide you through troubled times as you go through it. They got to show you in the tools piece that maybe they're going to give you more education. They're going to get you to conferences. They're going to introduce you to people. You're going to cross-functionalize your skills across the board. There's a lot of things. Number 3, family. It's got to be good for your family. Now, normally I would tell you family first, but I'm not going to go talk to my wife about a job unless I had number 1 and number 2, right? And so 3 is it's going to be about the family. And so today, that's a big deal today, since we just spent 2.5 years where everybody's been doing Zooms at home. Okay. Now, one side that was terrible for some people, and others, you know, who were single all didn't want to get, we're okay doing it, in their jammies or something, and making calls and then working out and doing a couple of things that they do. And so, but they forgot the blocking and tackling of making it. Why would you want to come back? And why is it so fun to be in your job? And so our websites and all our stuff have to talk about our culture and all the things that why. And see, because if you're working around, if we have 2 people coming into work with you and me, Tony, can you imagine what we can train them in if they come into our office instead of just doing it by a Zoom? I mean, face-to-face is the key in life. I mean, everything's about personal. Leadership is personal. It has nothing to do with this. Okay, number 4 is it's got to create a legacy. This job, where are we going? What championships are we doing? I want to get somewhere. That's why I really looked at this whole field, is I could create a legacy in sports. Okay. I could all of a sudden be around people that are like me, who love something. And so everybody, when I grew up, my dad would be on a plane and he'd be reading the Wall Street Journal and reading other books. And I'd be reading the sports page. And he goes, you're going to have to read something behind the sports page. When I got the commissioner of baseball, he looked and goes, keep reading the sports page.
That's funny. That is funny.
And the last one is you should be paid for your job well, paid commensurate to the job. Not only that, but what if you did something extra? What if you built something that no one else did and it's more profitable? I think you should get something for that. And so one of the great things that I do is when I talk about that, I can then outline for people how to get it.
Bob, that's a brilliant response. I want to just, this is still part of your story. I just want to add, you mentioned something about interviewing that I thought was incredible. I didn't realize that. So we're almost on the 75th interview pretty soon for this podcast. It started with my mentor, Sharon Lechter, who's the co-author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I asked her for an interview one day and she said yes. I went home and thought about it. I'm like, as an opportunist, what else can I do? Well, I created this podcast. So superstar after superstar has come on because of my ticket from her, going back to your mentor thing, but also my willingness to go out there and make it happen. The point I'm going to drive back to what you had said about the interview. I thought that was interesting. Your first job, creating this new industry, you interviewed 50 amazing people, and
in person.
And here's the thing, like what I'm doing, I see it's very similar to what you're doing. I want to know, like, your experiences interviewing those 50 people. Was it similar to what I'm going through right now? Like, I know that this interviewing process, I can't explain it. has changed my life. I mean, I got people like Brett Favre to Les Brown, #1 motivational speaker,
Love
Kevin
Les
Harrington
Brown.
from Shark Tank. I mean, it's changing my life. So did you go through that too, where those interviews were changing you? They were doing something to you to make you great?
So like, if you were just a reader, I tell people readers are leaders. You know, I tell people, I used to think that people who wrote books were schmoozing me into reading their book, okay, so that they could be rich. Then I read all their books and I found out they were already rich. And they were trying to give me the 2 thoughts that would change my life. Can you imagine what's happening to you? My dad made this perfectly clear to me. There's no greater job than what I'm about to get you into, because you get an MBA, a master's in business administration every year. People, listen to me. We're all a cup short. With you, I'm so much better. You're so much smarter than me in so many categories. What if I could just get some of your tips to my life? That's what I want. And so listen, what you're doing and what I did is, can you imagine that I get to sit across from these people and I'm just going to listen? I mean, that's what I say all the time is that, listen, if you could have 5 minutes with Warren Buffett, are you going to sit and talk the whole time? No, I'm going to ask him a question and see what he thinks about what I should do to invest. I mean, he's smarter than me in the category. Everyone is. You know, so there's something about listening and asking good questions. So the difference in why you're so good at what you do is the difference between successful people and everyone else is good questions, right? So if I can get to the heart of something, if I could just turn this spigot on, and when I got the spigot, which you always know because you've been around now the biggest people in the world. I mean, who wouldn't want to be around, some of the top people in Shark Tank? I mean, they're already successful. Les Brown, I mean, he's amazing. I mean, when you're starting, Brett Favre, I mean, he's Southern Miss. What do you tell? I did the athletic director at Southern Miss. I did a search where I'm on a board right now, and he was on. And I'm on the board with the guy who he was on the board with another president. So we like crossing different things, right? And of course, he's a legend. And it was, sitting with you, listening to legends, sitting around people with that one story. So one line that you and I can get, we could live on that line for a year. That could change the trajectory of my life with one thing. That's the issue that people are sometimes missing. So we're so busy in our lives that we don't hear anything anymore. And so we got our heads down, we're working too hard, we're putting our nose to the grindstone. And when you do that, your head goes down and I miss what's seen. And that's the whole point of the 2 chairs that I have, is that you could lay some things down and all of a sudden you would care more about other people that are about to hit you during your day. Because if I'm thinking, just think about this. If I'm thinking about my daughter, Allison, and then I'm thinking about Jenny, and I'm thinking about Rachel and my wife, I just lost sight of you. And so when people walk in their day and you carry this, that's why it's so important to have a friend. And so when I go around the country, I teach something that I tell corporations, I tell teams, CEO, team head coaches at the major, Division I schools in the country, that I can increase their productivity and in home visits significantly. I tell people all the time that I can change the productivity in your company 40%. They're thinking, what? 87% of companies do not have a program that promotes friendship.
Wow.
That means only 13% do. So why? Well, dang, get to work. Don't sit at the coffee area where you and I are sitting here having a cup of coffee and sitting talking. They're thinking that anybody who goes out in a golf cart with a CEO, and you're telling me that if I go out with you and a CEO and a golf cart and make a friend or sit on a plane, that I'm not all of a sudden having a better opportunity than doing that? And what if just one person had a friend here at your company and they could lay down a little bit of problems and the person goes, nah, you don't have a problem. I had that. And then they calm that person down. All of a sudden they're back doing something good. They are back loving it. So the issue is that, listen, 30% of the country have one friend at their job. That means 70% don't. So if you have one friend one true friend at your company, you're 40% more productive. You'll have be less sick. You'll have be more focused. You'll have more passion. You'll be more energized. You'll be more this. And what happens is the whole team gets in, and all you and I know is that I only have to get, if I come give a talk and I get 3 of you to do it, we'll have a sports wave going. I mean, it'll be so crazy that all of a sudden does it. And we do not need a lot to all of a sudden do it, because smiling and laughing and talking excited with expectancy is so contagious. And then we're talking about a dream, and we're going to say, we're not going to take that dream, we're going to do it. We're going to take it to another higher level in a process. But we've so contained it. It's like that old story of the fleas. They put it in this little glass thing, they put little holes on it, the fleas try to get out, bam, 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 bam. And then all of a sudden they settle, they take off the top, they ain't going out anymore. And that people are a lot like fleas, because they've been so held down in their dreams. And the answer is, what I want everybody to say is, no, we're not doing that. What's the bigger dream? What would you love to do? Okay, you should do what you love with people you love in a place you love where your family loves it, and you can do it for the right reason. All 5, the operative word was love. Everything else, if you're dinging on any of that, hey, we're finding something, we're looking for something new. And the answer is, but if you want friends in a company and you want love, then you got to bring it. You can't just say, hey, you want friends, be a friend and start loving on people. And how would that be best? Reading, listening to podcasts. Can you imagine the opportunity that we've had now to sit and people could come on your podcast and just listen to all these greats? Every single person you have on has got multitudes of little tips they're giving that they should be taking notes on and going, hey, holy cow, seriously, did you just give me a freebie here and I could do this? They should be subscribing and doing what else it is, and they should be trying to do anything that they could do with you. And of course, that's why you're a monster success in what you're doing. You're not just doing it, you're a huge difference maker, and at the same a moment maker. It's like you're creating a legend out here, but at the same time, you're constantly creating little moments for people, and you don't even know how blessed you are. You won't know until you get to heaven.
Bob, that is brilliant. And as you were talking about it, I was thinking, when I was a professor, I wrote books because I wanted to change the world, right? I got these 3 books here, and some of the people I interviewed were the biggest and the best in what I did. Like Mark Victor Hansen was on here. Him and Jack Canfield, they have the record for the #1 nonfiction book of all time. 500 million copies sold, Chicken Super Soul. He was here. So sitting on the room with me for an hour, just hanging out, on stage for another 2 hours. I mean, stuff seems to rub off, like knowledge that changed my life. And going back to what you were saying, so I'm assuming you're agreeing with this, those 50 people that you just got your career started with, I'm sure you interviewed thousands more, but they were changing your life and forming you to become a better person that led to where you are.
It was life changing. It was so big. It was the gift that keeps on giving, because once you met them, so the question would be is, once I met them, then I wasn't letting them go. Right. And so who would have ever thought later? So I started meeting, initially I met George W. Bush when he was, and I was doing an event for him. I really wanted to do one for his dad and Ronald Reagan. And so we couldn't do one for them. So we brought in Maureen Reagan and George W. back in 1983. And so my wife and I went out, and he was coming in from Midland, just carrying it, with his jeans and his backpack, and he's just working in the oil field. And so we started something there. But as soon as I met him, we knew, wow, this guy's got great interpersonal skills, really, really smart. He wasn't like, I laugh at all the times people make fun of all the way he says, things, specific words, and, he just makes up words as he goes, but he's just funny in that way. And so, but then all of a sudden, we started to get, he was thinking, hey, I'm working for my dad. Then we would get on planes to go to New York, and I'd sit and talk to him, and we'd share back and forth about, hey, what it's like working for dad. And he was trying to figure out how he could help his dad in his campaign when he was going to run for president. Then all of a sudden he becomes the managing director of the Texas Rangers. Wow. And he's like the lead guy for that, running the whole piece for them. I then get the commissioner of baseball. He wants to be commissioner of baseball. He's all of a sudden asked to be governor. I tell a really great story in the book about destiny, right? all of a sudden is now we're coming to a cross, and he's looking and saying, you got to get me that job. I'm not going to like beat Ann Richards, who was like the iconic Democrat who was fantastic. She just ran things. She was a conservative Democrat, just kind of ran things. And then, you know, he doesn't get to do the commissioner. It's not going to really be it, you know, in that direction. And he then says, well, you're going to have to help me run for governor. And of course he wins. And then of course, can you win and beat? Can a son of a president become president? And, you know, when you have a background and things that aren't always the greatest and da-da-da, and the answer is, you know, nothing can stop someone who has a focus of what they're really wanting to do in life. You know, so all this stuff, when people say, I can't get there, I can, sure you can. Hold a second, let's start with a plan. Zig Ziglar lived in my neighborhood, and of course he'd walk around, and he used to always say to me, he would stop, we'd walk, and he, you know, around the neighborhood, and he would always say to me, listen, so Bob, you don't have to be great to start. You just got to start to be great. And it's such, you know, it's around when you're around Waitley, Dennis, and of course he sent me a book. He was reading Two Chairs book, and he sent me a little video of him reading it. I mean, he's iconic. He's one of the greats, and he's with you. I mean, I could sit and listen to him for hours and hours and hours and hours. It's like Jim Rohn. The people, Norman Vincent Peale, who, you know, that's one of the great stories of me and my dad having lunch with Norman Vincent Peale, because we were doing the publisher of Guidepost magazines. The list goes on. I mean, when you're around great people like you've been around, I think that's a long-winded answer to get back to the point of the question to which you said. Is yes, that has really helped my career immensely. Why? Because listen, I'm just taking notes.
That's brilliant, Bob. I love it. Long-winded and all. That's great. I'm glad you walked me down that path, because, you know, I'm looking to the future. I'm just trying to figure out where this is all going, and I love it. I mean, Sharon said it right in the beginning. She said, look, you'll know when you get there when they start knocking down your door. And I noticed over the past like 6 months, progressively more opportunities just keep coming in. People call me, hey, interview this person, or, you know, how about this person, or you got to meet this person. You know, like the opportunities increases, as she calls it, power of association, which is what you're talking about, being around
100%.
these people. So thank you, Bob.
Well, they used to say the stupid line, and people say, it's not what you know, but who you know and who knows you. That's a terrible line. What do you mean it's not what you know? Of course you got to know something.
Yeah.
It's not what you know, but who knows you. A lot of people know you, and I know a lot of people. That's not what, we're not talking about just any who, we're talking about a specific who. And that's what you're doing.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. So, Bob, love to pivot now. We're going to get into questions. They're very, you know, most of them are very straightforward. And the questions, when I call them questions, I'm actually including just overviews of things relevant to yourself, like your books. So first thing I'd like to do is talk about your 2 books here. And for those that, if you guys want to just see it again, we got The Power of Who. Okay, The Power of Who, which is an incredible book. And then he's got his, I believe, your latest book, Two Chairs. Do you have any other books besides those?
So I just did a little, I've done a workbook in a process of The Power of Who. I'm writing in the midst of writing like 3 books at the same time. It's really crazy. And so there are different stages, you know, in various times of what you're doing. And I'm really excited about, you know, one of them will come out, you know, if I can just get the focus time to just kind of get away. This has been a little hard at the end of the year. But I will get that done real quick. And then I did a book with Kyle Wilson, and I did a chapter in his book called Think Big. Think Big. It's his most recent one out, and there's 40 great authors or things in this process. And I did a chapter that you definitely want to look at it. Even the chapter in the process, people kind of come back to me and go, okay, so we need your next book.
And that's got Brian Tracy in here too. I mean,
geez, I love Brian Tracy. I don't, you know, oh my gosh. His book on goals, the first time I ever read goals, you know, this guy totally revamped everything that I ever thought about the word.
Wow. Yeah, so that's incredible. Now you're going to be his co-author.
Yeah, exactly. How about that? Brian Buffini's in there. He's one of the celebrate, you know, he did.
Oh, that's where I saw him too.
So he's on there as well. And so there's some, we had like 5, you know, celebrity authors. And that's what's funny is that I'm one of those now.
It's a great feeling. I'm also involved with a 13 book series on Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I don't know if
Right.
you know Eric Swanson. He set up, he did brilliant with this. He set up 13 books. Each book has goes after a chapter in Think and Grow Rich, the 13 steps to riches. That was Napoleon Hill stuff. And we're on like the 8th book now. We got a celebrity for every book. And I'm not a celebrity, but it's okay because I got Sharon Lecter is now my co-author. Kevin Harrington will be my co-author. He's in that series. So
Not
it
a
works.
celebrity author yet.
Yeah.
Actually, you're already there and you're already it. If they just haven't, I sat next to Tom Selleck one time before he ever hit anything. And so he said, I'm working out all the time. And we're in the workout area. And he says, you got to talk to me. He says, I hate working out. And so I said, sure. So we're on a bike and we're sitting talking. And he goes, I said, and he's like a monster. Sorry. I said, so when did you like figure out all of a sudden, like you're the monster? Sorry. He goes, Bob, it's just like one day I'm working out and in the place and no one knows me. No one walks and cares by anything. The next day I'm the Marlboro Man. And all of a sudden, everyone in this place, all the women think I'm attractive. He goes, come on. He said, this is really annoying. Then I'm a Magnum PI. I'm now all of a sudden, blue bloods and I'm doing all this other stuff. And so my only thing sometimes is, you blink and this process. But what's great about you is that and what I always like when you see some celebrity is that they're just great people. And then all of a sudden you really love you just, it's heartwarming. It presses you forward to do some things you love. If you can find those people who are mentoring you. Of course, you're doing that every day.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're working hard, trying to make it happen. Bob, you want to give us maybe a 30-second interview of each book? We'll start with The Power of Who. I read this book, folks. It's incredible. So I will definitely say for sure that this is a very great book if you want to learn about networking in a different way. Okay. So I'm sure Bob has, and we're going to talk about networking later, but maybe if you want to give us a 30-second overview of each of those incredible books.
So I would have called the book The Power of Friendship, but everyone's got 5,000 people on Facebook as their best friends. And so I called this book The Power of Who, the people who matter most. So what if each of us, Tony, were given specific people in our lives to help us in ways we never imagined? And what if those people weren't just like happenstance acquaintances? What if they were strategically given to you to help you find that place in life you always dreamed about? What if, finding that dream job or getting your mom into a hospital is not about who you don't know, but whom you've neglected? See, we've missed the mark. To find our goals and our dreams, what we've been taught in college and in masterminds and in conferences and stuff is this word called networking, which is not working, which is faceless websites, handing out business cards to strangers, sending out Dear Recruiter letters. I get 200,000 plus resumes a year. Dear sir, to whom it may concern. Dear Recruiter. Dear Recruiter is an oxymoron. I don't know you. You can't call me dear. And so it's just kind of crazy that people get involved in the process. And so people are told, create your 11 to 15 second elevator speed. What are you, a stalker? No, we're not doing any 11 to 15 second deal. You already know everyone you need to know. Now that's the byline of this book. You already know everyone you need to know. Is that possible? I mean, but right off the bat, I'm not talking about something in the future. I'm talking about the trouble you're in. Where you are today. What am I going to do to find a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, a babysitter, a job, a dream, whatever it is? They all fit in the same box. You already know everyone you need to know. You know one person who knows another person will introduce you to them if you'd ask. So there's 3 reasons you don't get your dream. You don't ask. You ask the wrong who, the wrong people. You're vague. Okay, so this is the crazy part. So I wrote a book to show you and create a strategy called the 140 strategy to help people find their goals and their dreams. This is a book of hope. This is the most amazing book. I've read my own book 150 times.
Wow.
I mean, it was such a download. It's the whole strategy for how can a business be the top executive recruiting firm in sports and entertainment and be small in comparison to big people and all this other stuff. How do you grow whatever it is that your little idea into something big? Is that, we need friends, but stop. We live in the matrix. No friends allowed. You got to disclose your friendship as evil instead of declaring it as great. I reject that. And so we've been taught that friends in business are taboo. So let me get this correct. We're supposed to work with people we don't know and don't trust. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And we bought it for years. The top 1% of the country does everything different than everyone else. What do? Huffingtons, the Kennedys, the Rothschilds, the list keeps going, right? I mean, we could name hundreds. They do everything with family and friends. And they told everyone else to get in line and online. I'm not doing that. The answer is, I bet if I got around the right who, that we could all of a sudden do some things. And so I tell people all the time is, I just gave a talk to the incoming class for the SMU MBAs. And so I told them, I said, so listen, I'm going to teach you something today. Wild. And then I'll just give you this tip, and this is going to change everything for you. I'm going to tell you 4 things that people think about when you walk in the room. If I tell you these 4 tips, I said, it's like me giving the test answers before the test. And so I said, so you ready? And they said, yes. And so I said, the first things people think about you is, do I know you? Why are you in my office? Why are we talking? Why did I pick up the phone? So if I know one person who his best friend who knows him, I have an 87% chance of doing the deal or getting the job. So when I'm trying to find guests, I'm just trying to find his best friend who already sells me. So I can't toot my own horn. I'm going to have somebody else toot my horn. They're all going to say I'm already the best. Beep, 87 versus 13. I don't know about you, but I'm going for 87. Okay. Most people, they go in, they don't know anybody. They wouldn't do anything. So 87. Do I know you? Second, do I like you? Okay. Well, in the first 5 minutes, since interviews are over in 5 minutes, is that I'm going to talk about my friend who introduced me. And so you and I are just going to talk about Tom Chenault, and we're going to make fun of Tom Chenault. Tom Chenault, you are going to make fun of Bob Beaudine. He's this crazy guy. You meet this guy, he's insane. And then we're going to talk and we're going to have fun. And he's going to say, you got to know that you got to do this. And all of a sudden now we're at 94% versus 6. So first, stop. Is this possible? Okay, yeah, because references, endorsements, and testimonials are your greatest allies in that. Okay, so my friends aren't telling you. We're talking friends. We're not talking acquaintances. We're not talking just anybody. We're talking about somebody's. And when they say you're great, you know what you are? Great. You're not good. If they say great, we're moving to another tier. And so the answer is, we know this is true. Okay, if talent was the reason everyone got jobs, we wouldn't have Congress and Senate. I mean, what the heck? And so, do I know you? Do I like you? Do you understand my needs? So now we're going to have the person in the first 2 walk you in and talk about a job. And now we're talking about his needs. So if you went into that meeting and you hadn't really studied this other person and you didn't follow everything, so you should know everything about someone. So you're a perfect example of doing talks and training and development to kids and colleges all over America, because they just walk into interviews. They don't know anything about the person who they're sitting across from. Seriously. So they think they're the who. They're not the who. They're the who. They're the ones who are hiring. The answer is, you need to know them. And so when people go into the situation and they're going the other day, egotistically thinking they're it, first off, you missed every possible. I know everywhere you went to school. I know everything about you. I know all the people who are your potential friends. And so as a result, we're really interested in you. And so when you say, hey, do you understand my needs? That's just brilliant. I don't care what people are doing. Anyone who's in real estate, anyone who's in any aspect of selling cars, anybody who's doing anything, your whole goal is to get to know them. It's being known. Okay. Last one is, you understand my needs. Are you the best for me? Again, for me. So now you could be really, really good, but you're still not getting the job. Okay. And so there's always 4 great people up for a job. And I tell young people and anyone who comes in, because the people come into my office all the time and they've lost their job, they've been really big, they sit across from me, I always say to them, hey, congratulations, greatest day of your life, but you lost your job. Now you get to pick what you really like to do. And I'm a contrarian. All this stuff, the things like you stopped. It was so beautiful when we started talking about pandemics and saying, hey, all this trouble is happening. You go, it ain't happening with us. And so it just says volumes about who you are. because that could be like one of those moment clickers that someone does and says, yeah, that's exactly another reason why you're so successful. And people who are listening should stop and go, hold it a second. So how was I during that time? Why did I react to that instead of strategically respond? Reaction and response are two totally different things in life. And so we'll talk about that some further. But all of a sudden, do I know you? Do I like you? Do you understand my needs? Are you the best? Okay. Here's the way the world does it. They flip it. I'm the best. Didn't you see me on LinkedIn? No, I didn't see you. Hey, I understand your needs. Really? Does a woman let a man understand her needs if she didn't know him? No. Okay, well, you're gonna like me, and at some point you'll get to know me. Get out of my office. And so that's what's happened. We flipped it. So the same way I go in and teach coaches in this, I say, listen, you can't come in and say, hey, I'm Oklahoma or I'm Alabama or I'm this. Grandmas don't care about that in a home visit. They want to know, do you know the coach who took care of my son? I don't want them to get in trouble at college. I want to make sure that they're being cared for. They got all this stuff. So they're coming in and saying, hey, I know your coach really well. He's recommended me. He's the one who's doing this. Hey, listen to me. The second piece of that is, hey, listen, you're gonna like me because I'm in it. I'm known and I'm liked because of him. And there's a respect. People already know a lot about the big names of coaches. And then, hey, I understand needs. Now I will talk about needs, but I'm talking about the needs of the grandma, right? And the needs as it relates to great institutions with great integrity, with great things they can do, with getting to an NFL, which opening up doors, which making sure you have the right financial people, which makes sure that you have the right, you have the right moral code. Okay. And that's why in my book, in The Power of Who, I could just speak just about creating your personal board of directors, which is the most important thing you could possibly do in life. I mean, every president doesn't have just a cabinet, he has a kitchen cabinet. You have to have these mentors, and there's 7 people that I tell people when they start to get into it that'll teach them exactly how they do it and why it'll change their life. It's like each chapter in the book, like you were talking to me a little bit about, and when someone goes chapter by chapter by chapter, okay, of a subject is a book in itself. Well, that's really the way I created 2 chairs in The Power of Who. Is both of them, I really created The Power of Who to be a movie, because it's almost like the movie Crash, where everyone knew each other. Of course, there's always, I can't go into a room where I don't know one person who knows another person, and we all of a sudden do it. And by the time we finish, we've elevated up to another level. And that's the whole point, is now we're family. Mm. And so the issue is that, listen, you have to be known to be needed. So you can't get into something. And so why would I don't go up for just jobs. I go for things, again, where I love, okay, with people I love and place I love. And so I've done a lot of homework before I do it. And so when anybody follows this, I have people send me notes every single day about reading The Power of Who, and they just found their dream. I had one guy send me a note the other day. He made $37 million in his first year. I mean, he just was going crazy saying, and I said, he laughed. He says, I should send you a piece. And I said, yeah, sure.
I'll take 1%.
Yeah, and he wasn't doing that. But I thought it was just so funny, and I was so excited for him. Why? Because people are like, it doesn't, listen, if position, power, and money equal peace and happiness and contentment, that would mean that financial security equal peace of mind. And of course, that would mean the richest people are the most peaceful. And of course, we know that's not true. Mm-hmm. If happiness equals things, okay, then why, as soon as I have one nice thing, I want another nice thing. Mm-hmm. And of course, we get into this issue of being content. Well, as we're human beings, we're never content. So the issue is you got to find something you like.
Thank you, Bob.
So The Power of Who, that's hopefully a little bit, I'm teasing a little bit. There's so much in The Power of Who. The issue is take everything you know about networking and throw it out. It's all crap.
I think it was a tough question for you, because The Power of Who is really everything you've learned. I mean, there's so much that you've learned, you put in one book. So really, by me asking you to summarize that book, it's like, hey, can you summarize your life in a minute?
No, in fact, I'm usually so bad at it when I start to do it, and then I go, oh, I should, and then I'm thinking later, I could have said that so much better. So it's very complicated for me to do that. You're exactly correct.
All right, so Bob, I'm going to say it definitely was a great book. I just want to quickly talk about some things that I was a little confused about. Maybe if you can help me, because sure. Overall, great book. I just want to, like, from my perspective. So I grew up in Philadelphia, in South Philadelphia, very relatively poor family. I mean, my 4 grandparents died broke. We didn't know anybody. As a fact, everything I'm doing in the past 2 years has been complete trailblazing. Like, outside of Philadelphia, there was really no connection. So when you say that, everyone knows somebody. So how does your theory apply to people at the bottom of the social ladder? They might not have anyone to take you to your dream job. Like, they might not have that person that can connect. They might know everyone that works at the factory, but they might not know the boss or anyone that can take them to a different job in a different industry, even as high as us. Maybe you'd be a great author of some sort.
Great question. Thank you for that. Because the answer, of course, I have an answer. And I appreciate that tee up for me to exactly hit this ball out of the park for you in this process. First, I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to take you backwards and tell you exactly what it is. So I gave a talk to a juvenile detention center. I walked in, I had this friend, he wanted me to talk. He had put me on the front of a magazine. He asked me, you had to come in and talk to my thing. I said, to this group of like 17-year-olds who are one step away from going to the big prison. And he said, I'm teaching this class. You got to come in. I've clearly seen the power. Who's the key to them? And I said, okay. And I said, the key in this is you got to be there to introduce me. And of course, he has a flat tire. He doesn't do it. I think God's just like humoring, doing this. So I have to go in. I come in, and all of a sudden there's these 4 guards. I come in, there are all these kids like everyone, and the guard just smacks the table, bam, 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 says, everyone hit your seats. And they do not look like they're very good in this process, like nice people. And so he looked and he goes, hey, so we have this speaker today. I don't know who he is. And he says, but you will pay attention. Are we clear? And I go, and he goes, and everyone's going to sit there, and they're done. And I come up and I go, thank you for that introduction. What the heck was that? And I said, today I've got a talk for you. It's called One Friend. You're here because you chose the wrong one. So I said, I want to play a game here real quick. I said, a fight's about to break out. So the guards are all of a sudden like this. And I turned to the toughest guy and I said, stand up. I said, what's your name? Jerome. I said, Jerome. I said, a fight's about to break out. It's going to be mass chaos. Who's the one friend in the room right now that you're going to choose that's going to be on your side? Who is it? And so he's not looking. I said, hey, Jerome, look at me and tell me who's the one friend. So he starts to scan the room. And then he looks over and he goes, that guy. And I go, what's his name? I go, are you talking about this guy? Stand up. What's your name? JT. Jerome. That's the guy. Yes. I said, so JT. I said, can you imagine that he just picked you? You're the guy. You're the one. So my question, are you the one? Would you stand with him in the midst of this fight? Would you go in this, back to back in this fight? Yes. And I go, okay, hold a second. Jerome, I want you to go over there and I want you to high five him. So he goes across the room, and all of a sudden, and as he's starting to do it, he's raising hand. And after you high five him, I want you to give him a hug. The whole crowd goes, ugh. And boom, he hits him, and boom, he gives him a hug. When I had walked into the prison, there was no energy, no air in this room. 20% of the air just entered the room. I immediately stopped, and they came back. And all of a sudden, I had another guy stand up, and I looked and I said, I just want to tell you all that I do talks with CEOs all over the country. They can't tell me they're one friend, not one. I said, you just beat that. We go around, we get all these people, they start doing it. Everybody's declaring, everyone's hitting fives. We come to this one kid, Jose, in the front. He says, I haven't got one person, not one person in this room. Well, I said, you're about to get your butt kicked. And he turns to me, he goes, yeah, I said, you're going to have to pick somebody. And he looks across at the guard in front. He's got this ZZ Top beard, okay? And he's like this tattooed all up, big monster, massive, massive arms. And he looks and he goes, I pick him. And this guy looks over at him and goes, Jose, get over here. I want my hug. And everything changed in the room. Wow. I said to him, listen, if you want afterwards for me to sign, I gave everyone the 12 rules of friendship. I have a little thing that I was doing. And I said, I'm going to sign this for you. I'll do it and I'll listen to your dream. And so everyone got in line. And so we come up to dream. What's your dream? And they go, hey,
I want to be like a rap singer. Really? And I said, have you written your first song? And he goes, I haven't really written that yet. I go, well, let's just start with, you don't have to be great to start, but you got to start to be great. And I said, so what most people feel, like you said, is this. In most places, it's the grandma. It's the mom. It's someone in the family. It's one who happens to go to a church, who happens to have a person in the church who they recommend to do something with someone. And they all of a sudden are out. Every major comic who came from the hood can all tell you the one person, every single person that I know. We see it all the time. Every single person I talk to has one person who changed the entire trajectory of their life. We just think they can't do it down the other level, but God has given each of us people who he has specifically given to us, and they get out if they make the right choice. They go the one line. And my whole point is, if I sat with you and we whiteboard your life, Tony, I guarantee you're going to tell me one person who got you to here, to here, to here, to here. Anytime you did it only on your own, okay, without anyone's help, no one gave you any advice, no one gave you anything, it started to become chaotic. But as soon as you ask the 3 reasons you get your dream, you ask for help, okay? You ask the right who, okay? Because you can't get something you ask, dang it. And then you're not vague. You knew what, you just say, hey, I want to do this. And then what happens is, God's always been the same way. God said, ask, seek, and knock, and I'll do it for you. But we don't believe him, so why would we believe the other? And so we don't believe we have who, so what's your alternative choice? I got nothing, so I'm going to just go into drugs. I'm just going to pick bad things. I'm going to get into this. I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to do this. But even if you get in jail, we're going to have now who, because I'm going to have to survive the who that I'm all of a sudden in the room with. And I'm going to have to pick the right who if I'm going to live in it. Because I just went to the Michael unit in Texas. It's a 60-year prison, and it's the worst prison in history. And if you come there and the day you arrive, your life is in danger one after another. You're going to get into a fight until you join a gang. And if you didn't join a gang, then all of a sudden, you're going to be totally dismantled. And so, but my point only is when I talk to them, it's a whole nother story when I start talking to them about 2 chairs. So my point is that you already know one person, everyone does. And so the answer is that all we have to do is you go back in your process is you need one person to believe in you, one, and then that opens a door, and then you have to ask that person. Okay. And so even the people that we went through and I started giving tips and advice to people. And then we had a group that wasn't going to get involved in my line, even the 17-year-old. By the time all of a sudden I found one person, and there's one of the 17-year-old young ladies said to me, and she said, well, I heard that you were like at SMU. My grandma is at SMU, and she's one of the custodial staff. I said, fantastic. And I said, so she said, well, I've wanted to go and do something there. And I said, hey, have you asked her to make a recommendation? I said, between your teacher and me and your mom, I bet you can get an opportunity there. And of course, guess what we did? We got her a job as soon as she got out. And so the answer B is, but you can't get somewhere with it if you don't ask. And so you can't get somewhere if you don't have a list. If you can't get what you can't see. No matter where, any time in history, from in back, the questions is always been, hey, so what do you want? It's who are you? That's I did a talk for a large high school, all the high school principals and all the teachers and everyone. There's like 1,600 of these people, and I wish I had a video. It was when I first came out with the Power of Who, and I'm at the school, and as soon as I came in, they brought the band in, and the tubas and the horns and all the stuff for the Fort Worth school district, and they're playing "Who Are You? Who Are You?" It was so great. I said to myself, "Oh my gosh, this would have been like I'd have this on TikTok." It was just unbelievable. And then we changed people. You and I, listen, if you only knew how important you are to the people you know, how important you are to people you haven't even met, you have one gift that you can give someone that can change the entire trajectory of their life. And the answer is you got to see it. And that's why my whole life is to stop with a person in the moment. And when that person presents itself and the answer is I'm in. I mean, you and I get a glimpse of it every day. Something's happening, it's busy, we're downtown, something happens, a person falls, scrapes their legs, something goes wrong. And then out of nowhere, this fantastic person comes in, picks them up, grabs their stuff, puts it all together, helps them, etc. And I wish I had my camera and I'm videoing this so I could show my grandsons and say, this is who you want to be. And then all of a sudden it dawns on us, no one else saw it or was there to help. It was that one person. Could it be that God has sent specific people that are coming across your path in the future that are going to change the entire trajectory of your life? I mean, the answer is yes, they are coming. Can you see it? That's where I get my favorite quote in life. It's by G.K. Chesterton. He says, the one thing in life that gives radiance above other things is there's something great just around the corner. Are you looking for it? You got to be looking.
Bob, that is a brilliant point. I'm glad you humored me with that question, because if you think about it, like the answer to that question, if you could answer what you did successfully, it proves your whole theory and the power of who. Because let's face it, like the richest people, they only need maybe their cousin or their dad or something, and they can get whoever they want. But the people at the bottom don't have these connections. So if you can prove it for the people who are the least connected, then you can prove it for everyone. So
I do a story in the book about a carpet guy, and I'm trying to, and so it's really funny is I was trying to get someone into my daughter out of an apartment lease. So she can't get the lease because she's not going to stay there. I go to my friend in real estate. I say, hey, how would I get her out? He goes, you're stuck. I mean, you already paid. They're not going to give you back your money now that done it, da, da, da. And I said, no. And I said, well, and he says, but let's talk about it. And the same thing, we just started saying, I wonder if you knew somebody. So if you were anywhere down the line, and like I had a friend of mine, and of course we got out of the lease because we knew one person who knew another person who opened to the secretary who got this thing, and she walked in and did it. And the same thing happened to a friend of mine who was down, and he worked in a tough area of South Dallas, and they were selling used CDs. Okay. and that's the only thing they had. And he turned a used CD business into all of a sudden CD warehouse, wow, which then turned into movie trading company, which turned into a $15 million sale. Nowhere. All of a sudden he had one person who he met in this process that just crossed his path. Okay. And then all of a sudden they knew someone based on family that they started to build a friendship. They started to have coffee. Then he finally said, hey, so what do you do? And isn't it interesting? I tell people all the time. So I sat on a plane. I was going to New York. I sit next to this guy, and he turns to me, and I see him on his computer, and I look over at his computer, and he's working on his resume. I find that very interesting. Then he turned to me, and I said, hey, so what are you doing? He says, I got this big job opportunity. I'm going in. I'm trying to get my resume right, for this interview. And I said, and he goes, so what do you do? And I said, I'm a CEO of an executive search firm. He goes, puts down the thing. He goes, are you kidding me? Could this be the greatest thing? He says, can I ask you a bunch of questions? So I give him tips. I rechange his resume.
Oh man, his lucky
He goes in, he sends me a note back. As soon as I'm in New York, he sends me a note and says, they gave me the job right there. He says they were going to meet 4 other candidates. He said, I got the job. I'm flying home. There's a woman sitting next to me. She's got her earbuds on, right? And so she's just like listening. Guess what she's working on? Her resume. And she won't look at me and talk to me. She's only going to do her earbuds. Oops. Missed opportunity. So listen, do you think you're at places by chance?
That's a great example.
Yeah, are we by chance doing things? The answer is, what's the odds of us, you and I, getting Tom Chanel to do something, and all of a sudden you're opening up things for other people, and so this is the whole thing. Your whole aspect of a podcast to me are selfless, because it's you opening up people to other thoughts and ideas that help their whole career, and they couldn't have got that. So the real gift is you giving the gift to them because you brought someone on, and that's why I tell people all the time. When I wrote a book, The 2 Chairs, but if you're giving the 2 Chairs book to them and it changes their whole life and gets them out of a struggle, that's your crown. I'm so excited that you did that. I mean, I want to hug you. I mean, it wasn't like me. I got the download. I was really good. So there's so many things today that people would just step in and just do what you're supposed to do. Be there, show up, go.
And Bob, just real quick before we go to the next question, I do got a few more. I just want to say, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And my whole thing with this podcast really is to give the guests their best interview of their life. So when I show up here, like my game face, I'm ready to interview them so that when they turn around and say, and someone asks them, hey, what interview should I watch? And you go to say Dr. Finance, like you don't even blink about it. This is the one that'll tell my story. And, you know, and that's the way I feel I can serve at this point. So
100% agree. And you're awesome. So just thought I'd say it again.
thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. So Bob, next question, maybe 20 seconds. Who are some of your favorite celebrities you work with? Just real quick.
You know, I'm always, you know, so in the world to which I do, I'm not really around what I call celebrities. I'm around top business people who run things that, and then all the celebrities that they run around all want to know them. And so because people who are really good are some people that you do. And so I love the person who's able to make everyone else look really good and no one else really notices them sometimes along the way. And so that's why I have all these balls and hats and various helmets. And my favorite thing is getting those type of people who are the real doers of life. They're not just thinkers, but they're doers. And so when I'm lucky and I meet celebrities, and the thing that would impress me the most is that they're a normal person, right? That they're so fantastic. And of course, like an Arnold Palmer could be the greatest person in the world, you know, in that. So he'd be someone I'd just stop and tell you, hey, and a lot of people talk tough stuff about Frank Sinatra. I'll give you 10 more seconds on, I went on 25th anniversary. We're at a place in Palm Springs, and at a restaurant. It's my dad's 25th anniversary, and we think that Frank Sinatra normally comes into this place, and so we're just finishing, and in comes Frank Sinatra, and he comes in with his group, and they're sitting in a back field, and so I'm thinking I gotta go over and say something, because I love to have Frank Sinatra say something to my mom and dad on their anniversary, and so I say to my dad, hey, I want to go over and say hello. He goes, he just came in. This could be hard. He says, now don't take it badly if all of a sudden he doesn't want to do that. And I said, I understand. I said, but I'm going bold. And so I'm going through, we're going over there. I go in front. And then one of his goons, big guy, just stands up and goes, hey, sit down. He says, hey, yeah, what can I do? And I said, first, I just want to tell you, I've met you a couple of times in the past. I just want to tell you you're one of my favorites in the world. And you've always been the kindest person I've ever met. Today's my mom and dad's 25th anniversary. And they're huge fans. I mean, they're not somewhat fans, they're just huge. And I didn't know if at any point tonight that you could just walk over and just say hi. And he goes, where's your mom and dad? And I said, they're right over there. And they weren't looking at us. And I said, it's that table. And he goes, what's your name? And I said, my name's Bob. And he goes, okay, Bobby. So it's like I felt like he remembered back, like it was like a moment. It was really awkward. And so now, so he gets up, goes to the restroom, and then all of a sudden he comes on and sits down and kisses my mom on the cheek and says, happy anniversary, Martha. Okay. And then because he asked my dad, he knows my dad's Frank. He goes, so, sir, you have the same name as me? And he's shaking my dad's hands and instead of just walking away, he pulls a chair up and talks to us for about 5 minutes.
Wow.
And so some people are moment makers. I have a whole chapter in my book in The Power of Who about people who can create a moment for someone. It's treasured. It didn't take you long to do it.
Yeah.
It didn't take you long to remember who the person's name was, okay, and what you're doing. It's something that's just awesome. And so if you want to be successful in business, you got to be successful on the people side. The personal qualities of an individual transcend the technical skills. It always has. And so you don't win the interview just based on the fact that you dot all the I's and cross all the T's. It's not about that. It's about the fact that you have energy, you got love, you got an ability to share and have great interpersonal skills, and that you just somehow just create moments. in the process. And of course, that's the winner. You got to tell it to win.
That's brilliant. I love that story. That's great. Oh man, that's incredible. Getting to meet Frank Sinatra.
I know.
All right, so Bob, real quick, going back to your cover letter, your resume story, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in 2 sentences. If you can answer this question, what value does a resume and cover letter have in getting someone hired for a job? So based on all your thoughts, I'm sure you got a quick answer for that.
Yeah. People hire people, not resumes. So you got to know someone. You could do that. You could get a job and you might have a really clever cover letter, but the cover letter would have to have somebody you know in that. The resume, it goes in the trash. It just covers the lining of the trash. And so don't send in applications. Don't do that. It's an embarrassment.
That is so funny. You know what's crazy about this, Bob? Like, you're right. That's what they teach in schools. I mean, I went all the way to the highest level of academia. It's such nonsense. I remember coming out of college, I spent a whole summer with resumes and cover letters, and I got the job at the #1 investment company in the world, Vanguard Group. That was my gateway into this business, but I didn't get it because of the cover letter. It was through an HR person that I was nice with. I'm sorry, what were they called? Headhunters. It was a headhunter. I was nice to the person, and they got me in.
Of course.
Thinking about what you said, I'm like, you know what? I spent all those hours and thousands of resumes. You're right. That was such a waste of time. If I knew what you taught me in that Power of Who 20 years ago, we probably would have met 15 years ago.
We would have. Exactly. Never too late.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. All right, next question. If you wanted your dream job and was starting from scratch, describe exactly what you do to get hired immediately. Like, can you like step by step, maybe in a minute or less?
So if you want your dream job, you first have to be able to articulate what that is. And you have to be able to tell me specifically who's that with, where it is. It's got to be probably local because you're probably going to want to get over and see those type of people. You then identify who it is specifically in those companies you need to know. You then go out and then you immediately tell, your who, all the people to which you do, who are those? Your mom, your dad, your uncle, your coaches, your teachers, anybody that ever had anybody who ever liked you. And you just start to tell all these people, your neighbors. Most people see their friends and their family as, they don't see them as resources and conduits to their dream. It's a big mistake. Of course they are. And so they have no idea. God's really got humor. He created these people, and the people you think that are just a beer drinker with you, that you have nothing. There's no way this person's very successful. Yeah, but you didn't know his brother wasn't. I mean, his brother's the guy. And so once you identify that, and if you want a dream, you study everything about the dream. You talk the dream, you live the dream, you've already imagined it, you've seen it already forward, and all the stuff kind of works together. And then you set up a meeting through one of your people, and then you start talking about how much you know them. You've seen every video they've ever done about them. You know everything about them. And then they are so impressed because what? Most people are hiring for just passion, somebody who loves it. Then they do anything. Listen, what wouldn't I do? I mean, what's one of my favorite stories? Steven Spielberg. He jumps over the Paramount, things, goes in, gets a cup of coffee, and goes into the main producer and gives him a cup of coffee. And the guy goes, "Wow, thank you." He says, "If you bring it next time, bring me a couple creams extra." Next morning, over the thing, doesn't have a job. He sneaks over, gets it, puts in 2 creams, gets it to him. He goes, "Wow." He goes, "Listen, I got a problem today." He says, "I didn't get my laundry." He said, "I got 20. Would you go get my laundry?" He says, "Here's $20. Yeah, sure." Comes back, got the laundry done. Okay, comes in the next day, he's bringing the coffee. He goes, "I can't believe it. But you've been doing this." He says, "You work here?" He says, "How do you have time to come over and do this for me? This is great." He says, "Don't answer that. Here's what I want to say. My associate producer is not here. All they really do is just get me coffee. They're out today. I want you to do that job." And that's how he got to start. Come on.
Wow. Folks, I hope you're listening to that. That's an incredible story.
and that's my thing is, hey, what wouldn't I do for a client of mine? There's no too low. My client turned to me. So I started out, I got every one of my daughters, no matter what, they were all waiters or waitresses. Why? Because I want to see everything that possibly could go wrong in a room and be able to handle it with ease and smooth and seamless. And then so is anything different about my job today as an executive recruiter? I'm just a waiter.
Yeah, we're in the service business, basically.
That's it. Serving,
same idea.
Making a great experience for someone. That's what you're talking about.
Thank you so much, Bob. Appreciate that. Bob, in 10 seconds, are we all one connection away from our dream life?
Yes. It's not 6 degrees. It is not 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's one.
Wow.
You just haven't looked at it.
Thank you so much, Bob. Bob, next question. Is there anybody that you can't connect with having your experience with finding the right people? Now, let me just preface this real quick. So we had Steve Sims was on here. Okay. Steve Sims, master connector. This guy's done incredible things. Met like Elon Musk, had Luciano Pavarotti at the statue to David and had like a dinner, something it's almost impossible to do. He figured out how to do all this stuff. And the reason I'm bringing him up is he figured out how to connect with, he said basically anybody I can connect with on the planet. You're a different animal. I mean, you got a strategy, and you're doing what he does, but to an executive search level, and it's just amazing. So, like, if you wanted to, let's say you wanted to meet Elon Musk, if you haven't already, I'm sure you have. If you have a certain person, is there anybody you can't get to with your strategies for finding people?
So the strategy is contrarian to start with. So like perfect example was one of the people I wanted to meet was Dave Ramsey. Okay, because I wanted to be on Dave Ramsey. He's got phenomenal entre leadership, and I want to be on a show, TV show, and I just love what he does. I love how he thinks. I love everything to which he is. So I went through. I'm just go out to my friends first when I have an idea. So the fact that it comes into your mind and you had a dream last night, you all of a sudden started thinking Elon Musk, or you start thinking this. The question is why? And so that usually is a clue. And my whole thing, I got a whole chapter in my book on clues that all of a sudden it does. So now I got to go out and tell my who that I just had this clue. And I say, why? I don't know why I'm having this, but I want to meet Dave Ramsey. So all of a sudden, one of the guys, friends of mine, who's all of a sudden at a downtown aspect, he runs TV stations, turns to me and goes, I'm doing an event coming up in like 3 weeks with Dave Ramsey at a little place down at a barbecue place. And he goes, I said, so here's my strategy. I said, I don't want to just come in to meet Dave Ramsey through you that way. I said, who's Dave Ramsey going to be with? Who's he bringing? He said, he's bringing his best friend. And I go, I want to meet him. Okay, so I want to come in. I'm going to bring the Power Who book. I want to talk to him. And he says, come about 30 minutes early. So I come in early to the place. Now, I'm not coming in this, listen to me, I never have like an alternative motive, like, hey, I don't care if it works or it doesn't work. The answer is, steps of kind of a good man are ordered. And so I don't really think on the process that says, if God wants me to meet the guy, I'm going to meet him, but I'm not trying to get something without giving something like you do. So I don't have like this, hey, it's all about Bob Beaudine. I'm not thinking that. So I come in, I'm early. He introduced me to his best friend. And he goes, hey, so we start to talk. I start telling him I've written this book. Then I start listening that he says to me, he starts telling me about his son who's all of a sudden looking for a job. Well, fantastic. I said, I'd love to help him. And so I start to talk to him about the strategy, et cetera. He now is like texting back and forth. I got a meeting with his son on such and such a time. I've already signed a book to him, to his son, to hand it to him. I said, I'm going to go get another one for you. And in comes Dave Ramsey. All of a sudden, Dave Ramsey comes over to see his friend. He hugs his buddy and and he goes, hey, do you know Bob Beaudine? That's his friend says. He said, he just wrote this bestseller. He said, it's going crazy. And he says, he's your kind of guy, Dave. And Dave sits down and said, tell me about the book, All of a sudden, I'm on this TV show.
Wow.
He's now on so Dave Ramsey's on my book.
Yeah, I've seen it.
He's on both books.
By the way, that's incredible because being a finance guy, he's one of the leaders in
of course.
The publicity.
So what's the odds? And my whole point is that so like it's the same thought as I had to find an agent. How would you know how to find agents? I don't know how to do agents. So all of a sudden I just went to Barnes and Noble, went in the back, started looking into the acknowledgement area of who's everyone's agent in all the self-help books. I found it kept on saying, all of a sudden it just kept saying Jan Miller. So I said, okay, I sent out to 20 of my friends. Does anybody know Jan Miller? You know, I've been doing a book. I finally written the whole book. I got this. I don't know anything about anything. What do you think? 4 of them come back and send me a note and said, I know Jan Miller. And then they go, not only it's a woman and she lives in Dallas right near you. No way. And then I sent a note to the 4 and said, who of you knows her the best? And one of my buddies, Keenan Delaney, says, hey, I know her the best. And boom, all of a sudden, Keenan's introducing me. He's got to read the book. Bam, she's my agent.
Wow. Bob, you gave through example there exactly a particular process I mean, of course, folks, and I'll test this. It's not exact science. You got to be a little flexible in this, but creative. And Bob, that's a perfect example of how to do it. Bob, by the way, I want to introduce you if you're up to it. My mentor, Sharon Lecter. She's an incredible woman. She's up there. I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad, co-author. She's the author.
Love to
of
meet
Grow
Sharon.
Rich. She was the financial advisor to 2 U.S. presidents. Wrote a book with a third. I mean,
Wow.
incredible woman.
Can't wait.
Okay, I'll set it up.
Yeah,
she'll love it.
fantastic. Yeah,
All right,
that'd be awesome.
thanks, Bob. I'll make a note of that actually. So next question I have is, what have you learned from being great friends with Zig Ziglar and Tom Ziglar? Maybe a minute.
So Zig Ziglar is, it's just like what you were saying when you have people on and you get to know them is so the best story I can tell you from Zig Ziglar is all of a sudden my daughter brings over to my house her dog. It's this little Shih Tzu. Okay. And so she's thinking in the back and she's at college. All of a sudden I put it in the backyard. I didn't know that the little dog got out of the thing. And all of a sudden I've lost the dog. My daughter's going to be so mad at me. It's her little precious thing. I now think Zig Ziglar walks around my neighbor. I go over to Zig Ziglar's, knock on his door. And Zig Ziglar's got this big pad of stuff underneath his arms. And it's like papers. And he's got like a hammer and he's got something else. And I'm looking at him and I go, so Zig, I said, and he goes, what's the matter, Bob? And I go, I've lost my daughter's dog. And he goes, I go, so what is it? Is there something specifically that have you been walking the area? Did you do it? And he goes, so what's the dog look like? And I said, it's this little white furry thing. I mean, it's nothing more than a little fur. And he looks and he puts down his pad, opens it up, and he had already gone to to one of the major copying companies, and he made a picture of the dog, and he's got a picture of my daughter's dog, and he was about to go out and put it on signs all over town to say, did you lose your dog? And he goes, the little redhead has it in the back. And so I said to myself, so only Zig Ziglar, okay, who is like, one of the greats of all time. He's a legend. He's like a gift to our country if people could go back and listen to the wisdom which he had. And of course, he has a son, Tom Ziglar, who I consider one of my really great friends, who is one of the smartest people I've ever met. I mean, this guy's not just somewhat smart, but he's just fantastic. And so, he and I kind of got to know each other first when he read Power of Who. And so I knew him through his dad a little bit, but then we really got to know from Power of Who. And then he figured out that he needed to really focus in on his 12 friends, 3 close, 1 best. And he sent out my book to each of them and said, hey, when I read this book, I thought about us. You're my who. You're my best friend. And he got closer with all of those. And then he read 2 Chairs, and that just rocket shipped him in another direction, et cetera. And so he's big. He's like he's doing things that his dad would just sit down and just would just like applaud Tom for all the people he helps. He cares. And they just got a great family. Julie Ziglar, Cindy Ziglar. I mean, all the whole family is just like, they're just my favorite people in the world. I'm going to do something with Julie on Saturday. I'm going to do a little talk for her on Saturday. So I mean, just doing anything with the Ziglars is like doing it for like a king of a country.
Yeah, Dan Clark is one of his students. He's a Hall of Fame speaker. He was on this show. He just an incredible man. He spoke so highly of Zig, and I learned a lot about these people from many of the speakers that I've spoken with.
I gotta get Tom Ziglar on your show.
Oh, that would be great. I'm
going to do that. I'm going to work that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just taking a note.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. He would love the clubhouse thing too, because all his people are over there. Like, they love Ziglars. That's all they talk about is Ziglars.
Of course they do. I've never met anybody. He's had 27 Ziglar. It's called Ziglar Legacy Training. They train people to go out throughout the whole world and train everywhere. And I've talked to 26 of the 27.
Wow.
And so it's just like, it's just like the honor of honor. So, and their whole family, everything, his whole family is his wife and daughter. They're just unbelievable.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Next question I have for you is a little bit interesting. So as you break new glass ceilings on your rise to success, there might be friends who will disassociate with you. Especially, I've heard like Tony Robbins and a lot of major figures they talked about who came from nothing pretty much, who got to the top, and a lot of friends they had to disconnect with. There was all sorts of reasons. Many are attributed to their own insecurity and fear of success. How do you help loved ones become successful who have disconnected with you for unknown reasons? You've lost your who, and you don't even know why. Like I've had this in my own life, right? Like as I climbed, some people I thought were my best friends, they dropped off. I think they got scared. You're writing books now. You were just, you know, I was a thug in my teenage years. Like, how did you go from this to getting a PhD? You're not the same guy I met. Like maybe somehow like there was some disassociation here. And I try to figure those relationships out. And I
Yeah,
see
so-
that I'm not alone with this too, Bob. So maybe you can shed some light on that.
It's kind of like one of those thoughts that, you know, that people don't normally like to talk about in a process. It's one of my favorite things to do for people is that we send the text message, right? So they've not had something you know, I had a girl and I brought Nike's group into my office. I was training them. And one of the people in there, I told her, send this note to your sister. And she goes, oh, I haven't talked to her in 3 years. And I said, I'm talking about you, Evan. That's perfect. We're going to send this to her. Hey, I'm thinking about you. I appreciate you. And I love you. And so she goes, no, that wouldn't go good. And I said, no, we're going to send it. And so she sends it and it comes back, what, ... confused, ... And then I say, send back, no, I meant this for you. She goes, this doesn't sound like you. That's what her sister said. And then I said, send back, no, I meant this for you. I love you. And then she comes back and she goes, we don't say the L word in our family.
Oh, geez.
And so I said, send back, I just did, and put it, I love you in all caps. And she goes, why don't we work on somebody else? And the whole team gets up and walks over and says, no, let's follow this through. And before I tell you what happened, I tell people, listen, if someone asks you why I sent this note, you're going to tell them I was with this crazy guy. And he said, if I sent these 3 lines, the 3 most affirming lines in history, who would I choose to send it to? And I chose you. So this isn't about me picking who you're sending to. This isn't some game. We're breaking through the ceiling. We're not going to say this anymore. I don't care where you've been before, what we have. We've changed. We could change in a year. We could change in a month. I could change as of yesterday. And so the answer is, and that's this line that once someone takes a place in your heart, they never leave. And so this is a game changer in a process of sending it. Boom, she says, oh, and so she sends it. And then she goes, she's not going to respond. And then the president turned to me and says, so is she going to respond? Oh yeah, she'll respond in the next 20, 30 seconds. And she sends back and she goes, and you can just see her whole face start to cry. And that's what we have all over the country when people are doing this, because it just has such an impact on people because, you know, your dad dies later or something happens and she sends back, her sister says, you just broke the curse. She says, I love you. She says, I'll see you at Thanksgiving. Now, hold it a second. Can we have the power to change the way we text message? Sure. I had a guy send it to his mom. She was going to die in 6 months. And so she said, oh my gosh, son, did you just send this to me? She says, I'm looking out the hospital window and I want to tell you from the highest mountain in Switzerland, I love you. Echo, 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 mom. And then he sits down and cries. A week later, he sends me a note on Facebook to me trying to find where I am, how to get my number. My mom passed away today. She said, what if I hadn't sent the text? So listen, what good is it that we know someone and we don't tell them that we love them? What good is we love them, we don't tell them? I mean, come on. The answer is that life is short. I can promise you, it's impossible life. You must stop and take the moment. I mean, I don't know about tomorrow, but today we could make a difference, you and I. And of course we are.
That's a brilliant story to bring the point home, Bob. Bob, but what do you do in certain situations where you have someone that maybe friends or family that have basically they've brought you down, brought you negative energy?
Yeah.
So, for example, when do you need to disconnect with family and friends? That's really what the question I'm trying to ask. Like, there's certain times where you might have friends that want you to live the crime life, or want you to do bad things. At what point do you just break that mold and make them not your who anymore?
So there's a great book and by Jim Collins, Good to Great, and he said, get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus. And so I don't know if Jesus got everybody off the bus. I'm one of these contrarians. I'm not giving up on someone in trouble on any circumstance, no matter where you are. There's times my dad would always do downloads with me. Whenever we'd go I'll never forget sitting at the Bull and the Bear in New York, having dinner. And he says, okay, so today we want to talk about this subject called unforgiveness. And he says, so let's just say you and I have this big fight. Now, my dad and I never had fights. He says, but let's you and I have a fight. And I'm so mad for something. I've been tired. Something went wrong. I'm just mad. I say a bunch of stuff to you. You're hurt. And I can't, out of my pride, tell you I'm sorry. Here's my question. Are you man enough to come over and say you're sorry so you could free me? And I go, wow, okay, well, I hope I would be. And so it wasn't 6 months later when we had that argument.
Wow.
And at 6 o'clock, I hadn't heard from my dad. And I'm thinking, dang it, what the heck? He always calls me if he did something, anything would be even slightly. And at 7 o'clock, I don't hear from my dad and I hear this in my ear. Are you man enough? And I looked at my wife, Cheryl, and I said, oh, okay, I gotta go. And I got in the car, drove over to my dad's house, knocked on the door, and my mom was at the door. And man, I could see my mom was just like hurt at the moment. And then I look through and I see my dad coming towards me and his shoulders are slumped. He starts to come over to me and I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, I mistimed this. I said things that spurred you probably on to something that you would never have said. I said, it's my fault. And my dad just grabs me and pulls me in and goes, I'm sorry. You just freed me. Now, if I could tell you, we have people who have holding unforgiveness for people all over today. And it's all a waste of time. It's all a miss. Every argument we have is stupid. I've never had an argument with my wife that's not something. I mean, it's the most ludicrous, stupid stuff that anybody would ever have. You have to be like, in kindergarten, to have an argument like this, because she's like my prize. She's like the love of my life. It's the stupidest thing I've ever had in my life. And so everything's always just misunderstood. So when people, to get to your point though, listen, there's some people who are gone the wrong direction. And that's when I enter in the book, Two Chairs. And so my thing is when they enter in, I say, hey, listen, so I said, so I've thought about this. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And my mom asked, that's what the whole point of the Two Chairs book is really, is that I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And I said, these questions are simple, but they're disruptive. And my first one is, do you think God knows your situation? I mean, you're wanting me to get in this with you. You're wanting me to do stuff that I shouldn't do. And my question is, I have an answer, but I want to hear yours. Do you think God knows that you should be doing something that you and I both don't think? I don't think you should. You're just wanting to make money. You're trying to get into this thing. This is going to cause problems. You're going over here to do something. I'm not going to do it. Do you think? And he goes, I don't know if I believe in that. And I go, okay, fantastic. Thank you for saying something so transparent. That's awesome. So the second question is, do you think it's too hard for him to help you? And I don't know if I believe that. Great, thank you. Okay, I got one more in this question. Do you think God has like a plan that could be better than the plan that you got that wouldn't get you into any of this trouble and do anything? I don't believe in that. I go, okay, so if there's a 1% chance that the guy who created the whole world would meet you tomorrow at your place, and you have 1 chair for you and 1 for me, would you go and meet him? Sure. And I go, I thought you told me you were an atheist. and he goes, I'm intrigued. And so I said, okay, so let's stop and you go meet. It doesn't matter where people are today. I said, call me tomorrow. I said, you don't need to set a clock. Just tell God that you're going to meet him at 2 chairs. I got these 2 chairs. I said, you own chairs, right? He goes, sure. And then I said, call me like at 9. Tell me what happens afterwards. I said, do it first. Just get a cup of coffee, just go in and sit and talk. So he walks by his thing and he doesn't see anything at the chairs. He comes by, comes back with his coffee. All of a sudden he feels totally the room, totally different. And all of a sudden he kind of gets this, he hears this voice saying, Jim, thank you for coming. I go, what'd you do? Well, I dropped my coffee and fell to the ground. Exactly. And so now he tells me that everything changed. So my whole point is, so I sat with people. I'm at prison with all these guys. And I'm going to give this talk. The warden of this prison asked me to talk. They can never let you talk at this tough prison more than 20 people because it's dangerous. I mean, these are all the worst of the worst. They're in for 60 years. They don't have air conditioning in Texas prisons. So it's going to be hot. Okay. And so he says, my wife read it. I've read it now. And my wife says that you're going to come. And if you come, you'll have this little book. I had a foundation. I'll tell you that later, but they bought these little books and I each of them, I'm going to give each one, but we're going to let you talk to 1,500, like 400 at a time. He says, now my wife says that she's been doing 2 chairs and God said, you're coming. Are you coming? And I said, yeah, I'm coming. So I come. I said to God, as I'm driving out, that's the thing, what's the talk? He goes, when they close the door and all the air comes out and there's totally, you're inside, you have nothing. He says, then I'll download the talk. And I go, I'm totally uncomfortable with that. And he goes, this is way over your pay grade. And so I go in and here's what it is. So it just kind of goes to your point here. I looked at them and I said, I come up to them and I go, what if you could leave prison for 5 minutes every day? And the pain and the shame and the fear would leave you. And then all of a sudden, the peace of God that passes all understanding would rest on you. That would be a good day, wouldn't it? And they all start going, yeah. And then I said, and then you remembered back when you weren't in this prison for 60 years. And you knew who you were, but you just got with the wrong person. I just turned one thing bad. You did meth, you did something. It turned to this and to this. And then all of a sudden, now you're stuck. And you're starting to think, crap, I got to go back and I leave my time. I got to go back into the prison. And then you hear this directly from God, that you're not forgotten, but loved. And I paused. And then all 350, 400 of them stood up and started to cheer and cry. And I thought, what world did I just code into? Now listen, I told them, God's not mad at you. He's not mad. He made you. He made no mistakes. The answer is, hey, the difference is a response now. We can make a difference, you and I. Hey, 5 minutes in the presence of God changes all your best laid plans. It's not religious. It's relational. The guy who created, I mean, he knows who you are. He's not. And so my whole point right now is that there's a lot of people that we left along the way that, hey, we're maybe their only chance. The answer is, I look at those guys and always say, no, I'm not doing that, but I'm not giving you up. But there's no shot, as in zero. The answer is, I got a better thing. What if I can tell you about doing something else and we could do this over here and let's come over here. Hey, and I just start downloading things to constantly remind him. And so I never turn to him and go, hey, you're a schmuck. I just say to him, hey, listen, you're making bad choices. So the answer is I did the Today Show one time and I finished and I said, I was sitting talking to Ann Curry after one day and she said, she was talking to me and she said, hey, so she was just saying, hey, so what do we do? What do you do about 17-year-olds, right? Who are all of a sudden, I said, 17 is a tough age. I said, my dad, when I was 17, used to send me notes and he quotes from all the type people you have, from like Les Brown, who tell you who you are. He'd write a quote and say, I just saw this quote from Les Brown. And he says, this is who you are, Bob. And he just starts sinking those at me all the time. You do it all the time. And then what happens is they all come in. So when I plant something in you, it's going to create. If I plant a bean, it doesn't create a bean. It creates a crop of beans. Mm. That's what's so great about your show. You're not creating something. You're creating an entire forest field of something that could all of a sudden change. We can create a movement across everything, could do it. You have no idea. It's one thought, one idea, one friend. That's the whole point of the power of who. Who could be better than 2 chairs? So I turn to people all the time and say, hey, so listen, seriously, God, okay, would like to talk to you. I mean, why wouldn't we want to do that? I mean, hey, would you get up and have coffee with Warren Buffett? Yeah. Would you talk the whole time? No. Who's Warren Buffett? He's not like God. And so my whole point is, hey, what do you got to lose? Are you man enough to sit and take a chance and sit with God and see what he says? And the answer is, it's the secret that changes everything.
Bob, that's brilliant. You are a contrarian. That's a very different point, different way of saying it than I've heard from so many people that are at your level. And it's amazing. Like, for example, Les Brown, his answer was, sometimes when you get on the elevator, you got to let people off. And you're saying, I'm holding strong. I'm going to keep going.
Right, because
you're
I don't
coming on
believe
to the top with me. You're not getting off.
No, you're not getting off. No, you're not going to make that, because there's the hardest part in this process was, life hits hard. And so, I mean, when my 24-year-old nephew committed suicide,
I'm sorry to hear that, Bob.
it was like the worst possible thing that ever happened. And I thought, could I have sent him, hey, I'm thinking about you. I appreciate you. I love you. Could I have gone deeper? And the answer is, that never happened. That would never happen again in a situation where you think something's going this way and you don't have your head up. You get too busy. Busyness today masquerades as effectiveness. It's a waste of being busy. The answer is, listen, you can do this job with 75, 80% of your effort. And then you have all this other time to strategically think. Why? Because you love it and you're great at it. And it's simple and it's like butter. It's what you're naturally, purposely called for. So as a result, I now strategically get to think about things of my family and other things that are going on. And I'm listening to it all the time. Hey, oh yeah, need to call my daughter. So I send out notes to my girls, say, hey, did I tell you today that I love you? My oldest says, oh, daddy, I love you back. My middle says, you just did. My youngest says, no, you didn't call me.
I love it.
So everybody's got different love languages. We got to know them. And these people that we're working with, they do not want to go in that direction. They have no one who believes in them.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Brilliant response. Bob, what message do you have for people who have experienced tragedy during the great pandemic depression? Maybe a minute or less.
So if something hits you today, that's not good. God's not done. Your story's not over. Your best is ahead. Trouble is an opportunity in disguise. Every single level of something, that every wall is for you to elevate over the wall. The question is, you can't always do it alone. So God first. Second, who? We've been given specific people to help you do it. God himself will help you do it. He'll give you ideas. He'll give you thoughts. He'll give you imagination. He'll give you dreams. He'll give you stuff. All of a sudden, people cross your path. You can't believe it. How many people cross our path that give us the answer which we were sent to? That's the whole key, the thing. And the answer is, are you looking for it? So the answer is yes. Hey, we're promised. Listen, you can't live on our planet for very long and not know that trouble is coming at us from every side of direction. So I wrote in my book, 2 Chairs, 3 questions to ask. The simplest question in the world: does God know? Yeah. Not only does he know, but he wants you to know he knows. Though the highest priority in a crisis is to get your mind above it. Highest thought is God. So he doesn't have like 6 telephone lines for like 7 billion people. He doesn't just work on pandemics and ISIS and heart attacks and that. He's working on you. He can do 7 billion people at the same time. 2, is it too hard for him? No, but it's too hard for you. So now we're stuck. Does he have a good plan? Yes. What is it? You have no idea. Wouldn't it be logical that, hey, I'd ask? So, hey, good morning. I'm a mess. And so I then go through 7 things to do in a time of crisis. These 7 are brilliant in the 2 Chairs. So someone just bought 265,000 copies of 2 Chairs to go to prisons, military, first responders, social services. Can you imagine? And so I get letters every day all over the world from people sending me pictures of their 2 Chairs, telling about their first conversations, telling you about trouble that they got out of, telling me of people in bunkers in Afghanistan, people who are all of a sudden held in their home tight in Iran, in Iran, or in Iraq, or in stuff. People in prisons are sending me letters. I mean, it's wild, and it's so simple. Of course, the power who and 2 Chairs are the simplest concepts of anything. I mean, you know,
We're doing
can't
two
stop.
cheers right now, right, Bob? Like this is two cheers. This is
this is
kind of
it.
this is it,
Exactly.
right?
That's all we're doing. This is exact. So you wouldn't like, you have two actual, Tom Ziglar is the funniest thing in the world. So Tom Ziglar does two chairs. And so I'm listening on a podcast of him talking about it. And so he said, hey, yeah. So he said, what's your favorite book? He goes, I love two chairs. What the heck is that? And he goes, one chair for you, one for God, you sit and talk. And he goes, are you talking real chairs? Yeah. Are you talking like you're talking out loud? No, just like you and I are talking. And he goes, are you hearing him out loud? Well, I don't hear the enemy talking out loud with me. Every single day I hear him and I'm totally okay with it. He's beating the crap out of me. And my mind can't get off of this. And I'm waking up with nightmares and I'm working up with this and I can't get over my job and I've lost this. And nothing's going to happen good for me and all that. No. At the same time, you got something that's already beaten that you can all of a sudden talk to. Wouldn't that be a good idea? So he kind of goes, he said, so what you say? I said, good morning. And then what? I said, Bob told me to come.
Oh,
He goes, so like, he says, like, you can't talk to Bob. So this is the thing. You can't talk to you and me. Can't talk to Billy and what it is. Can't talk to anybody in this system, not talk to you. There's no respect for this. He loves you just much. He leaves the 100 to go find one. This is just too simple. Business to me is not compartmentalized. This is the ridiculousness of the subject. Like Bob, the person who's the author, Bob over here, the fraternity guy, Bob over sudden the country club, Bob, this guy. Then I got one. And so the fact that I'm going to all of a sudden be this person who's going to tell you that about God. He's the king, the guy. So why would I not tell you about success? I mean, I've been doing the same meeting for 40 some years. And it's better than a mastermind. It's all my success in business comes from two chairs. Everything, anything I've ever done, he's given me thoughts, dreams, ideas, and things. And so seriously, he knows. So I wouldn't ask him. And the answer is, and then he's given me, so here it is. I talked to him first, then he gave me my friends. And now all of a sudden we're off and running. And when trouble comes, dang it, I'm back with him sitting talking. And I said to my mom, so I wrote the lens through my dad on Power Who. I wrote through to my mom, and I said to my mom, so when people come to my office, I say to them, listen, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. These are really tough questions, but I'm not going to, listen, you can't get mad at me. You'd have to get mad at my mom. And people just laugh. I mean, and I say, hey, listen, at the end of the day, I'm just turning and saying, hey, we're not going to sit and talk, of course. And so he had to have done something along the way, and he'll do the same for you as he would do. And it's so, listen, of all the things that I could possibly write, I get more letters every day on this from CEOs of major companies going, what the heck was I thinking? So I've never had this conversation. And like I had a coach the other day, and so he's like coach at Rutgers. He's a great friend of mine, Greg Giano. He goes, did you write a second book? I go, yeah. And he goes, that would have really helped me. And when I was at Tennessee, and I said, yeah. And he says, so listen, I've been doing 22 years of quiet time, Bob. I just never knew I was the one who was supposed to be quiet. That's what we do. We do a thing like networking. We do it. It's called prayer, where we just talk. All we done. And then we keep our same problems and we leave. What good is that? So the answer was, that's not what he wanted. He said, cast your cares on him. I got some things for you today. Are you available? Then you watch how things happen. And some people are thinking like, what are you, a nut? I mean, so I had a guy and he said to me, but we're comfortable talking about the worst things over here. But as soon as we say the word like God, I mean, seriously, this is too simple and obvious. And so if you're heading, I had a guy, the top guy in Dallas asked me one time on TV, he says, so Bob, he says, you're not a priest. You're not like a bishop. You're not like a rabbi. So what the heck? And I said, when you're on a gurney, okay, I said, and you're heading to the hospital, you're not asking about rehab programs and prescription plans. You're screaming, God help me. So the one thing I might start with is good morning here and see what goes. I said, you're going to be shocked that he knows your name and he's already sitting in the chair.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant, Bob. Thank you so much, Bob. Appreciate it. All right, Bob, we're going to move into our template questions. These should only take about 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap up the interview if that's okay with you.
Perfect.
Right, these are the same questions I asked everyone from Bob Berg to Tom Ziglar. I'm sorry, not Tom Ziglar. Yeah, I'm thinking in the future.
You're going to. You already. That was very good done. Well done. The answer is it will be. And I love Bob Berg.
Yeah, Dr. Dennis Whaley, you named Brett Favre. So, and then yourself. One day I'll be the next episode, like Bob Beaudine.
Exactly.
All right, so we'll get started here. The first one is can one book change the world? Now these are only meant for like 30-second questions. So can one book change the world? I'm a big author guy. Like I do all this speaking, by the way. I became a speaker to really my books over here. It was to get the message of my books out, the works that I worked at universities for 10 years and I didn't really get any respect or support for the book. So I came on my own. And so books are big for me. Like, and I'm trying to figure out, can one book change the world? And I know in your case they have, but I'd love to hear your exact answer. Bob, floor is yours.
So, when I tell people who write books, I said, first, you have to enjoy the journey of writing the book yourself. I mean, it's changing your life. I need to change your life writing the book first. Okay. And so when you write a book, I tell everyone they should write a book just to be able to write acknowledgments. And so that has a big factor. Number two is the legacy of what you're doing for your kids and your grandkids. The book has a big factor. We have no idea who reads the book. All we need is one person, okay, that would read the book, that would change it, would be worth my while to see that person be successful or be in heaven or do something really great. Number two is that, but your book has been key in the whole scheme of God's whole plan, and that he has people specifically that he's going to cross who he wants to have read a specific paragraph, story, line. And so most people, when you're given talks, if they remember, 5 minutes of your talk because they get so blown away by the 5 that they can't get it out of their mind. And so I have everybody, I say, how did you like the book? And they go, hey, so oh my gosh, Charlie the Shoe Shine. He's the greatest thing I ever wanted. Herb and Myrna, when you told that story, when you told me about Dale Carnegie marrying me, I just want to I went to Dale Carnegie and I did this. And but there's one person that you're going to change in something that's going to change an entire aspect of a community, of a village. I mean, so that's, to me, the ultimate of something is that as long as we first started and you're just so proud of the fact that you just did and put all your heart and all your effort and all your mind and all your soul into it. And then I take the book and I put it on 2 chairs. And I say, okay, you got to take care of it now. I don't know what to do with that. Right. And so I just kind of leave it there. Right. That's just what I try to do.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. Bob, next question. What role has networking played on your life? Now, this is an interesting question to ask you, but I've asked everyone else. So, this is right up your alley. What role has networking played in your life?
So early in my life, I went out on the pursuit to find everybody and do networking. I found that I had 5,365 people that knew me that said, hi, Bob, and would hug me. And then I did a study of those 5,360. It took me 5 million miles on American to do it. Then I did a study of who's touched my life or gave me any business. Oops, 87. So I took dumbass off my forehead and focused in on my 87 and started into the power of who. To not go wide, but go deep. Deeper relationships, stronger friendships, and always in this process. Making friends, helping your friends in every way possible. Not missing moments with your daughters. I've done 7 million miles now in America. I've never missed a daughter's event or anything. I just would make sure that I try to do something on that side. I don't win at someone else's expense. I'm not doing it. To me, networking is a bunch of crap. It never's worked. It never does work. It just gets you busy and focuses you off on dollars and cents and things that all of a sudden don't matter. At the end of the day, you and I were created for friendship and relationship. And if you and I sat in the back, smoked a cigar, sat and talked, and just had fun, we didn't really need to be at Cipriani's in New York. Even though we'd like to be at Cipriani's in New York. Being in the back with you, sitting and relaxing, having an iced tea, having a Diet Coke, sitting just talking, having a fire going, telling stories about how much we love our kids and love our grandkids, and times of trouble. And that's just always been something in a process. And of course, I've had terrible tragedy in the last couple months, but God has walked through every single step of the way for me. And if it's not good, it's still in the process. He's not done. And so it's the same thing in networking. Once you figure it out, that it's about 12 friends, 3 close, 1 best. If your grandfather told you if you had 1 friend, you're blessed. 3, rich. 12, dang it, we changed the world. I mean, and the answer is even one of his dropped him. And so my only point is, I tell people, listen, the model's been around a long time. I mean, it's, Jesus had 12 friends, 3 close, 1 best. Everyone knows who he is. 2,000 years later, he's still signing recruits, still doing deals.
That's a great point. I love it. All right, Bob, this question, the extension of this question, I only hold it for certain people like yourself. And actually, I think you got the best answer, and you wrote it in your book. I couldn't believe it. This is the one page that stood out for me. Okay. I bookmarked it and all. I usually ask people this question, certain people. I say, look, if the next Michael Jackson was standing on the corner, okay, and he's out there singing a song, like, would he ever become to his fullest potential without getting that connection? And you know what? Your book, I think, had the best answer. You had on page, let's see, I got the bookmark and all. It's page 124. Okay, the section's called "We All Need Bridges," and I love how you talked about like what Elvis. You even went like you didn't mention Michael Jackson. That would really freak me out if you did that. But you wrote Elvis Presley, because I've been asked this question for years. Elvis Presley. You talked about Reverend Graham, Hearst. I mean, Tiger Woods. Like, we all need the bridges to get to the next level. That not only answers that question, you went deep on that, but I'd love to hear your verbal thoughts on that.
So, I mean, people are catalysts and for us in our lives. They change everything. One person can help you, but you can't get there alone. You were never created to get alone. We're all a cup short of greatness, 1 cup short. And the answer is that until you humbly have to turn and ask another friend for help, you're never going to find you're ever getting to where you need to go. And God's going to force it along the way. He does it on both sides. We need God's help. I need friends' help. I can't do it without you. I can't be known. You're known to so many more people in a zone, and all of a sudden the opportunity for a number of people to hear about the power of who in 2 chairs and what it could do and impact their goals and their dreams and their whole relationships is all because of you. And so the issue that comes back in it is you're the bridge to all of a sudden all this million people and their million people, right? If you have 100 friends and I have 100 friends, we don't have 200, we have 10,000. Can you imagine what your million get me to? And so that's where no one really understands the impact of someone who's a catalyst like you. That's what you are. You're just a difference maker, catalyst for something that if you're on fire for it and someone sees it, it changes everything. One thing. And so we need bridges, and people are bridges. Once you understand that a people is a bridge, if you want to get to that side, we're going to have to, listen, you better get Tony.
You got to find that person.
You got to find the one who's going to help you do that. And listen, you already know everyone you need to know. And so I have a chapter in 2 chairs that says, do the done. We're already living our lives backwards. It's already done. And that's the coolest part of this whole stuff. If you really, really realize that, hey, steps are ordered, days are numbered.
Bob, that's brilliant. And I just want to comment on that last point. So I got over 1 million followers on Facebook at the moment. I'm more proud of, like, I got 14,000 on LinkedIn, which includes like 300 CEOs of universities, a couple governors, things like that. But Clubhouse, I only got like 10,000 followers, or 11 now. And like my community is probably only a few hundred, like the real tight community. So those are the ones that, you're right, like mean more than the million, because all those people have their own like influencing communities, millions and so on. So you get to the right person and you can make a wave real quick that can go viral just instantly by doing the right thing.
So when my daughter is an Instagram influencer, and she's
Oh, wow.
fantastic. She's the Downtown Alley, AOY, and she's just amazing. And she has 400,000 plus. But when she does a TikTok, she'll get 15 million. I mean,
15 million likes.
Yeah, 15
Wow.
million. Okay. And so she'll just go out and just rock it. And she has every company and thing. And she's just so, because she's so authentic like you, right? It's just, if people want to be around someone who's actually bringing authentic advice and things that people love to hear, and then they, every single time it feels like home, and then they feel like, hey, my gosh, I'm not going to miss this today because I want to see who's next or what's going on. And so they're constantly doing in this process. And so she does things that her whole family's involved. They sing, they talk about products, they talk about this. And so she just did like a Walmart live the other day, and they had never done that before. And it kind of blew it was so big that it blew their system.
What?
And so my thought is in life is that your club, okay, is a club. It's where people feel, hey, they almost, you're wondering, hey, so sometimes they want to keep it in their club.
Exclusive,
But that is actually growing all the other ancillary stuff bigger, because these people have millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions. And so that's all just building to grow, to explode. Clubs, when you get to a level and it starts to become so big, it just bursts.
Mm.
And so that's about to happen to you.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. By the way, I had Ivan Meisner on here. He's the head of B&I. Talk about clubs. He built the largest business networking, and he's in your backwoods too. I don't know. Do you know Ivan? I can introduce you to him.
Love to meet him. I was supposed to meet him one time because I was with Jack Canfield, who's a friend of one of the guys that I worked with before. And of course, all these guys, they're all fantastic. When you listen to some people, they're just brilliant in every which way of their own. And you just kind of want, again, when I sit with any of them, I just want to just listen to what the heck they have to say.
Mm. Yeah, he's right there in Texas too. So that would be,
Yeah, I'd love to meet him.
Contact for you. All right, thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. Just a few more questions, wrapping up. Is mentoring important? And who are some of your mentors? Maybe 30 seconds.
Mentoring is the most important, individually, the most important thing that you can do. So coaches, teachers, pity the person who doesn't have a friend, okay, to pick them up. So, two are better than one. It's in Ecclesiastes. It's a better return on your investment. Okay. And that's what they say. Pity the person who doesn't have somebody pick them up in their time of trouble. And of course, my dad was my original mentor, and my mom, okay, for things, etc. But then, I had a guy like Bill Bartholomew, who was just a great mentor for me. Ray Davis, who owns the Texas Rangers, I known him since I was 19. He was just like working, and I did a search back. My first search ever was him for a plant manager. And then I did work and put in the president of the Texas Rangers and put in a number of different spots, but I sat on his board for 7-8 years, and on his executive board of the Rangers. And so there's some people who have so much wisdom. Okay. They have so much they can impart, but I tell people all the time that books are great mentors. Books.
Yeah.
So you can start to think they're in the room with you. And so I got books that I love to read, and I read them over and over and over just to kind of stop and remind myself, hold it a second. Did I get off on this side? Did I get over here when I was supposed to be over here with him? I mean, it's something that they're talking about. And so, but I have, I try to write into my books, people acknowledging, and I have a long list of mentors that people who touched me, along the way. One of my guys, Roland Hansen, who's who created Windows for Microsoft, and did all that, and my early mentors. And so, but each job to which you have, each of the people to whom who opened and gave you searches and helped you and moved you along the way, friends, one of my best friends, George Brandon, kind of gives you tips, right? That's what you have when you do your personal board of directors. When people read the Power Who and look at this list of the 7 people you have to have on your board and why, it'll change everything in their life. And of course, Tiger Woods and other people who have had, anybody who's had trouble, wish they'd heard that thought first before, right?
Yeah, that's right. Tiger Woods. Wow, that's amazing. So the Tiger Woods, did he write any endorsements for you? Or
So
was it,
Tiger, I know, but the answer is but the answer is I know everyone
yeah,
around
exactly.
him.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not like you're not close to the issue is, but trouble always has a way of helping someone along the way.
Yeah.
So it doesn't like hinder them. It's supposed to, sometimes we're the craziest society. As people get old, they kind of be put in old homes. In my point, hold on, let me get this correct. They have all this wisdom and now they can pass it along and now no one wants to hear them. The answer is I'm the opposite. I have just a heart for people who are older. I just love to sit and just listen to them and tell me about the way things were and why we need to have some of that come back.
I totally agree with you, Bob. My first best friends before I was 10. Well, it's a whole nother story, but we're over the age of 75. They were on my block. I had no kids up my street.
I love that, of course. It's
Thank
probably,
you.
it goes into your success story.
Yeah, I guess so. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. All right, Bob, next question. Speaking of books, you mentioned books, and I love it. I love your response to that. What are your favorite financial books? Now, when I say finance, I'm talking about most people lump business into that and investing and money. I see that as all the same. So finance, any kind of finance books. I'm sure you read Think and Grow Rich, for example.
I did. I loved it, of course, and so I've got a lot of guys who write books who come into it. But of course, Dave Ramsey's, he's always in this aspect of just doing what's basic, bringing you back to common sense, because he loves to just like smack, aspects of where you are. But I also have, I have like, I'll put up sometime a list of 10 top financial writers that I like that actually does it. But I think the most important aspect of your financial is to have on your board of directors, on your personal board of directors, a financial advisor to your financial advisor. So on my board, so like I have somebody who does my stocks, okay, and tells me here's all the things and such. But then I have a financial advisor who tells me whether I should do that or not, right? And so I have a fantastic guy, in a guy named Josh Berkowitz, who I deal with, and he was a top Goldman Sachs guy who just unbelievable, one of the top traders in the world. And I sit on a board with him. And so when you're on boards with people who are just so brilliant on things, I'm going to first say, is this logical? Am I thinking this right? And of course, he's a contrarian thinker and he thinks so much brighter and harder and above, and everyone in the world would want him. And so I just kind of every once in a while I go, and so it's like a blessing and a gift to even be friends with someone like those type of people, right? What do you think? You kind of like, and everyone's like leaning in to hear if anyone else is, they want to hear what he just said. But it's again, simple, but it's forward thinking.
Bob, did you get a copy of my books? I sent you, I think I did. If I didn't, I'll resend it.
I know, I want them. I haven't got those yet.
No? All right. Make a note of it. I could have sworn I sent it.
I can't wait. Right. I'm on that. And I love the fact that I'm going to be able to do that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Bob. And then we're almost done. Just a few more questions left. Is finance, I'm sorry, do we need money to survive? Maybe 20 seconds.
So our whole world is involved in money. So the answer is, of course. And so the problem that comes in times in money is just is not having a good advisor around you to be able to understand, how to enjoy life where you are, and at the same time, decide and say, hey, I'm investing in something that's going to have a future for me, that this. And so, God says, hey, a person who plants, puts his money and it goes and invests it, and then another person who does it with a little less than that, and then one who puts it in the ground. And the answer is, he says, takes the person who had it in the ground and he gives it to the person who invested it in the best, right? You're supposed to use your gifts and talents. Gifts and talents are the key to all aspects of the financing piece. And so the answer is, if you do what you do and you're providing services and you are a solution to someone today who's in trouble. And the answer is, if you can solve that with a product, and you and I could have come up with, sticky notes, and you and I could come up with something else that would have been a simple idea, in a car seat, then we would all of a sudden been a person who would really understand that. Now, once you have money, right, then I'd like to be around, listen, you got to be around people who are smarter than you. You never give yourself your own legal advice. Don't just make financial advice. People do this study. They're really good at this. That's what you're good at. And so the answer is I'd listen to somebody who's smarter than me because I'm a cup short of greatness. With you, I'm a lot better. And so the answer is money aspect, yes, but at the same time, relationships are the key.
And speaking of that, the extension that is finance necessary. Now, when I talk about finance, this is the science of finance.
Yes.
So I created a term called the financialist in my book 10 years ago, where the economics have the economists, right? I'm like, well, we need our own scientists and the financialists, the science of finance. Like, do you think that's necessary for everyone?
100%. Yes. The answer is there's so much new revelation that's coming today. We're constantly coming up with an idea that our new ideas today that we're doing in science and finance and everything else, everything else is outdated. We've been doing the same things since, the same ways and the same products. And we've got cures today for cancer. We just got to get them through the FDA. We got things that we're doing in this. So the hardest problem is to be able to get an idea and a thought like you're talking about, and getting it so a lot of people can see the simplicity of it and say, I gotta have that. And so, and so we do that one person at a time, and once you change it, when you have a good idea, if I like a movie, I'm telling you about it. I mean, if I'm telling you about this Proveda product that you put on your shoulder because it hurts, in 60 seconds it stops, well, that's gonna be wildfire, and it's just gonna be something. And so I keep telling people, is that at some point when this all of a sudden rocks, it's going to explode. And I can't wait to read yours, because then I'm going to want to ask you 3 hours of questions to tell me what it is I need to know.
On your podcast. You got to invite me to your podcast.
Exactly. I mean, you're going to be on it. I promise.
Awesome. Bob, all right. So 3 more questions. You're going to love these. These are really the highlight questions. How important is having a purpose in business, and what is your purpose? That counts as one question.
So I think without purpose, you're done. And so people can tell the authenticity of what it is. So purpose to us is and ours is in our mission is making friends, right? Helping friends in every which way. And then we're not surprised that we do a lot of business with ours. We do it in such a way that I tell people is that our whole goal is just to love in such a way, love what we do and show people and serve them in such a way that is so outrageously they find the one person that changes their life. And I can do that in a search.
Thank you, Bob. Bob, next question. What would you like to do in the next 10 years or so? Second to last.
So I'm going to speak more. As soon as I get this next book, so I'm going to speak on a much broader base. I'm going to people really like, I have a number of CEOs who want me to CEO coach and kind of help their company to get to a level. And I can do that. I need to get the message. I'm creating a message of a much broader array of the power of who to create a kind of a Who-university, which is what we're going to roll out to teach kids and that they can go through, which will give them the background to really help them for their next side and really kind of try to simplify and get people in some workbook that allows people who think it's complex when we're talking about which church to go to, which this and that or the other. And I'm turning and saying, hey, let's start, with, do you own 2 chairs? What good is it to go to church if you didn't know God? Once you know God, then he'll tell you where.
Bob, I just got a thought when you said that. Like, your message it couldn't be more relevant right now, because as technology is increasing, people are going in coffee shops and not talking. You got 30 tables there; they're all full of people sitting there by themselves on a headset, looking at a desktop or a laptop. What is wrong with that picture? We need to get more connected and learn about people. And that's really what your message generally applies to.
Couldn't you see, just like the Starbucks that you're just talking about, when someone walked into that and all these 30 didn't come in with that, they all just came in and just had a table where they all mingled and thought.
You mean like 20 years ago?
Yes, where we had a Who group where we all so if we took those 10, we took 10 of us and we did a thing, and all we did was we created, put your dream up, and we said, hey, here's how we're going to get it.
Right.
I could pick out that in every single company. I could do in anything in the side. We all make millions. Ridiculous.
I love it. I'd be honored to be on the board for that one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's definitely a great one. All right, last question. Thank you, Bob. what would you like to be your legacy to this world? If you had to look back on your tombstone, let's say you died, you went to heaven, you came back, and God gave you a few seconds, said, all right, look real closely at what your message is. I want to see people's responses to this. What would your message be on that tombstone? What is your legacy?
Bob, I'd look at him. Bob loved God, and was loyal and served him. He loved his wife and his family, and my family. I would really believe a lot of times is, listen, when you've been given who, and God's not giving you more who until you take care of the who you got. And then once you do that, then he is exponentially growing your who. And so he can do it in such a way. And so my whole goal is to help people, find, not only just how much that God wants to be a friend, but they got other friends, because you and I were created for relationship. We need to feel affirmed. And if there's nothing better, our whole life is better when all of a sudden you're celebrated, not tolerated.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. And Bob, I just want to say thank you again for being an incredible guest. And we definitely went over a lot of time, but I am honored to do so with someone like yourself. It was just amazing. So many incredible responses. I got to know you a lot better. And I'd like to leave the floor for you. If anything you'd like to share, your websites, your social media, any more information of any sort you'd like to share, the floor is yours, Bob.
So first, thank you. I'm so grateful for you. And so thankful that Tom introduced us. And so it's kind of like Casablanca, like we're just like it's the beginning of a new friendship, right? And so that's where you never know where things go and how things can broaden. And so I appreciate the opportunity, appreciate your ability, which you have to get the power who in two chairs, which is exactly what it is that people have forgotten their dreams and their goals and they don't know how to get to it. So I'm trying to teach that. So they can go to Bob Beaudine, .com. And so mine's French spelling, it's Beaudine. And they can go to that. And then I'm on all the social media in something. I've been doing social media for, 18, 20 years, where I've been doing posts every day every day, every other day, where I just do inspiration. Just taking a thought that I get at two chairs and I share it. And it's grown, it's grown really big in the process. But social media has restraints when anything sometimes is a little too positive.
Yeah.
And so my thought is, I don't care. It's not mine. I don't get to control. And so I'm writing that in a new book. What if you get to control more of what you can't see than what you can? And if you understood that, you'd have a great day. But if you did it every day, you have a great life. So mine is, get on, tell people to get on and be friends, and then send me notes and see what you think, and tell me what you think about two chairs and how your life was changed, with one friend, how your life was changed to get to your goals and dreams, and how I guarantee you how your life was changed totally at two chairs. It'll be a mind blower when people start to do it, but it all starts, with one thing. And so it starts first with me just saying, thank you for having me on today. I'm honored to be on your show. And I just pray blessings on the show and everything you do.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. I really do. I'm honored. Bob, what social media sites are you on in particular?
So I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn.
Twitter.
I haven't been. I used to be on that. It just got to be a little complicated with people today, and so my messages are I'm not trying to give them one little quote in something. It just got to be a little. Mine has. I try to give them a little bit more meat. But I will have a podcast here before too long. I've got the top people in sports and entertainment and everybody who'd love to be on to talk about things that matter. I've assembled a number of people in life that people would just find, oh my gosh, I'd love to talk to hear with that person. And so what's great about those is people come to my podcast and then all of a sudden we're friends. You'll be on my podcast, and then all these other great people will be on yours.
Oh yeah. No, that actually, it's a brilliant strategy. I have several people like that we're just a tight community, and I'm like, hey, you want to interview so-and-so, like Tom, right? So, but I got to say though, Bob, this is not easy. This is a lot of work. I know people who stopped the first episode. They're like, no,
I get it totally. And mine is that, so someone asked me and said, so when did you do your first speech? Because you've talked now to, I don't know, I've talked to 600,000-800,000 people in person. And they say, how did you start? And I said, well, I did 2,650, one-on-ones before I ever did a talk.
Yeah.
And so in the executive world to which I have, and so in the Power of Who and in 2 Chairs, there's so much content that it's unlimited. And so what's hard for sometimes is that in some aspects is that mine is, since I'm in a business of interviewing people, that's what I do every day. And I've done it for 42 years. So people, the people to whom I have are used to me interviewing them. And so mine is to bring out the best in people like you, right? It's not to come up with the hot problem of the day. The answer is the problem of the day has to be discussed in a way where people, experts and people who are interesting, that will be wildly beyond their thought of just what did they do in that situation, right? And how did they get out of this? What are they, what's your advice? Because all these people, have lived lives that are just really interesting. And so I'm excited about that. There's so many things in the future. There's things that we haven't even thought of that we're going to think of next of what we're going to do. Who has any idea? Mine is this. We're supposed to do wild and crazy things. We're never supposed to do something. So every day, life's short, life's based. I told a basketball team the other day when I was with them, I said, there's 27,350 days in an average man's life, and you guys don't care at all. I said, I only got like 3,000 left. And so I said, but tonight is not just any Tuesday, right? We're going to win tonight. We have a moment, and what we're about to do in the next 5 minutes is going to change everything.
I love that you said you're in the business of interviewing. I think that's really cool because it's so true. It's like you would do this naturally. Like it's just
what I do.
What you do.
I interview thousands of people.
Did you ever study Larry King or Oprah, like their history and their listen to an interview of them?
Oh, sure. I've had lunch with Larry King.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay. That's great.
So it's kind of like in this process, in this thing of where you go, it's like, having lunch with Norman Vincent Peale. So it's just like, it's a, when you start to think back what you did, or sitting and having dinner with big stars, and you think, hey, is how this possible? But it's always about passing on a nugget, right, to somebody else at a point that can help their lives. That's how I see it. It wasn't really something that I look back and say, hey, this is, because if you looked at my wall behind me, it's not about praise of me. It's about keeping and wise, trying to remind me to do something really wise today.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. Bob, I want to conclude again, and thank you so much. I appreciate you. Folks, you've been watching the Dr. Finance Live podcast, Dr. Anthony Criniti IV, drfinance.info. Definitely check that website out. We're going to be posting this video to YouTube and all the 20 plus major podcast directories, also on the web, and I'll put it on that website as well on the podcast page. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe, and leave a comment. And here's my 3 books, folks, my major books. These are the ones I'm an author of. The Necessity of Finance was my first book I wrote for my students over 10 years ago. Well, it's getting close to 15 now. And I wrote that to give an overview of the subject, but I came upon a lot of conclusions, which led to my next book, The Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance, which is helping to revolutionize the 2 sciences. And this led to my final book, which was called The Survival of the Richest, about 500 plus pages of just incredible, insightful stuff that I think has changed science as a whole. But check it out. It might give you nightmares at nighttime, but let us know in the comments.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you, folks. Bob, any last words or thoughts?
I forgot it. They can go to my firm's name, Eastman, EASTMAN -Beaudine, BEAUDINE.com for a firm, anything in that. But you can find that through BobBeaudine.com as well. EastmanBeaudine.com,
right?
Yes.
Okay, EastmanBeaudine.com, folks. Definitely check it out. Check out Bob's social media sites and give him a follow as well. And comment, like, and subscribe to his pages as well. So thanks again, folks. We'll see you on the next episode. Bob, if you can hang out, I'm going to walk you out in just a moment. Thanks again, folks. See you next episode. Bye-bye now.